In that moment, baby genius Peter realizes, oh, I don't like pity. I don't like this feeling. I would rather be seen as an asshole than have to deal with this. So thus starts, he goes to his parents and he tells his parents, I don't actually want to go to school. I would like to be homeschooled through my A levels. And his parents are like, it's actually socially better for you to go to school, buddy. And he was like, no, I do not want to interact with lesser minds, which he doesn't actually think. And he specifically sets himself up to realistic. I also demand to be homeschooled to avoid lesser minds, says William. Go away, William.
I think your mom just thought that the Florida education system was faulty, which is correct.
Especially since she homeschooled all of her children, I believe, so it wasn't you.
Will is so dumb.
He says, true, I didn't get to avoid lesser minds because of my sisters. I hope your sisters don't watch this channel, except I know one of them does. Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of your favorite podcast, Unresolved Textual Tension. It's me, your host, Maria, and today with me, my beautiful and sleepy co-host, Katie. We should just call you Sleeping Beauty.
That would require the second part. But anyway, yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Today we are talking about a book that Maria and William have already done the author before of. That was not good.
This is our second book by this author.
Oh, second. Yeah. Because so it was R.F. Kuang, right?
Mm-hmm.
And previously you guys did Poppy War, correct? Yes. The only reason I know this is because somebody reminded me in the chat. And today, however, we are doing the book. Is it Katabasis or Katabasis?
I forgot how they said it at the start of the audiobook. Katabasis is how the audiobook says
Katabasis.
it. Katabasis.
Okay.
And I remember because I'd been saying, I've forgotten how I was saying it before that, but she said that, and I was like, the fuck? That's how this is said? So that's how they said it. I said Katabasis is how I was saying it before.
Yeah.
Anyway, weird title means going down into hell, so that should give you a clue of what we're in for.
That is a nice, I mean, look, how nice and apt a title. It's really always very fun when you really just hit a bullseye on titling your piece. Unfortunately, when the piece doesn't carry through itself in order to really make that title ring true.
I am so glad. I was worried you were going to really like this book and we were going to be...
Are you kidding?
Katie, you surprise me. Sometimes I'm like, there's no way Katie's going to like this. And then you're
not like it.
I loved it. It was everything. And I'm like, what the fuck? And so I was just...
Okay, look, I have never said I loved it. It was, except for on, like, Princess Florinda and the whatever staircase. And then, and, like, one other one. But besides those, no. Yeah, I just give them chances.
Yeah, but you come in and you're like, I actually enjoyed it. It was a good time.
Yeah,
and I was like,
enjoyed it is the word, not loved it. Enjoyed it.
I was worried you were going to have enjoyed this. And
not at all. It was really a slug, and a slugger to the chest. As I've already shared with some of the people that are in the chat, I think the biggest failing in this book, personally, is the lack of interest in the characters. The characters are not interesting. The characters do not inspire adoration or interest in any way.
Before we get into our thoughts and critiques, give us the premise and then just launch straight in because we could be here for a while.
Got it. Okay, so very basic premise. Think Emily Wilde, but less. It has the same tone in the beginning as Emily Wilde, if you've read that book. And if you haven't, think slightly whimsical, kind of dark, academia. We're at Cambridge. So we have a main character named Alice. She's American, and she has come to Cambridge to study magic as a sorcerer or a magician. And so in this world, we're in a world just like ours, except for it's just slightly different by having magicians in it. And that is about the only difference that really comes across at any point. And in this world, magicians are known of. It's not a secret. It's not Harry Potter. There is no secret Hogwarts. It's just Cambridge. And there is a whole study for magicians, a whole college. And Our second character is Peter Murdoch. Peter is British, and he is also at Cambridge, also trying to be a magician. Well, these two are a little bit pitted against each other, kind of have the hots for each other from the very first step. You know, that's the thing. And the problem is this. Unfortunately, their professor has blown to smithereens, their advisor, their mentor, who's supposed to be in charge of making sure that they have a future. And he has gone to hell, is what's presumed. I actually have a whole thing about that. But anyway, he has gone to hell. And so our main character, Alice, is like, I must go rescue him because I feel guilty because I had something to do with it. And Peter is like, I won't let you go alone. We shall go together. And therefore, hijinks ensues, where you get a Dante-esque adventure where they go through hell to go rescue their professor. It is a slight dash of romance, mostly adventure, I suppose, and not overly funny.
Yes, that's actually a great segue into a lot of my problems. Katie's already mentioned characters, lots of character issues. We've got some lacking of dimension, and part of it is a lot of people in our Discord just mentioned the main character can be incredibly unlikable. For me, the sins of this book, so in one way, I liked this more than Poppy War. By actually quite a bit. I liked this more than Poppy War. I really didn't like Poppy War. And I will say I feel that Kuang has grown as a writer, which is
That's
crazy.
Good.
Yeah, because that book had too many genres, too many arcs. Like, it was like 9 different types of anime had all been smashed together. Like, you had a school arc, you had a war arc, you had like, there was all of these things, and each of those arcs could have been their own individual book. But we're all a slightly different genre. And one of the problems I have in this book, which is the character's motivation, and some things, like the author will say a thing and then 4 chapters later kind of says the opposite of that thing. And I had a huge issue with the motivation for our main character. I think her name was Rin. I don't remember. In Poppy War, where like in the first third, her motivation, the book would be like, this was her motivation, and then it would be like, actually, this is her motivation, and this, and it wasn't.
It's supposed to be one of those like pull back the curtain moments at any given moment for the main character.
And it wasn't like she suddenly like, now I have a new motivation. It was just like, this has been her motivation the whole time, which is one of my least favorite things. And it was also inconsistent because some of her motivations like conflicted. And I had a huge problem with that. This book has that. It happens less so than it did in Poppy War. But because it is less, it's almost more infuriating, especially because the way the motivation changes in this is akin to the book The Thief. That was the one, remember, the guy was the like, he was just a thief, and then in the end, actually, he was the royal thief of this other kingdom, and surprise, even though it was in first person the whole time, and he hid it from you. So this book does that, where like the character whose head you're in, whose thoughts you've been following, is like, surprise, actually, I had a secret motivation that nobody knew, even though I was giving you my thoughts directly. I hate that. It's one of my least favorite things. I literally wanted to throw the book against the wall. The author also is just inconsistent. It's like she wrote chunks of it in 3-month gaps and didn't fully go back and reread some of the stuff she wrote before. But the most egregious sin for me is somehow hell is empty, has no atmosphere, no spook, no scare, nothing.
There was, you know what's unfortunate is that, so originally it seemed allowable because, and as we get into more of the plot-based things, we can get into it, but what it seems allowable at first, when they get into hell, they're in limbo, basically. So everything is gray and depressing and there's not much going on. But then, like, it doesn't expand beyond that, even though you think it is. It's because the next ring of hell, where they address pride to a certain degree, they're in like a cool, like, alternate, well, I wouldn't say cool, they're in an alternate, like, Cambridge, a library and everything. So I think, this is like a baby step in the direction of interesting settings. We're gonna get to nope, never. Nope. You never get an interesting setting.
And every description she gives you feels like paper thin. There is never a sense that hell is a place. It feels miasmic. in the
Yeah.
most ephemeral, and not because she tried to do that. Like, it wasn't, she was
Well,
like,
maybe she
oh,
did.
no, she didn't. There was multiple points where she described even the city of
I
Dis, which
know.
was supposed to be Dis, which was supposed to be the most beautiful. And I was like, oh my god, I feel like I'm in a blank wall. And you told me there was something, but at no point does she describe, or does our characters interact with the world in a
It
way
just,
that makes it feel
well,
like anything is real.
I think she set herself up for defeat in a way. Because if you're going to do a depiction of Dante's The Inferno, you need to be as creative as Dante Alighieri was, and you can't just be blah. Because, like, for example, one of the first big points that you get is you get a gigantic wall made of bone, and that's like the first division between sections of hell. And I'm like, cool, a big wall made of bone, how
Bone.
creative for hell. Which, granted, maybe it's allowable in the right circumstance, but like it didn't inspire anything in me where I was like, oh my god, that's so revolutionary, or oh, what a fun, beautiful description. I'm having so, like, whereas, like, for example, just for comparison, let's say, like, we've read quite a number of books. I mean, even just if we think about it, Piranesi is also similar in tone, like, to that depression, that echo chamber, that, like, there's nothing there, nothing's living, it's abysmal. But Piranesi still captures an essence of, like, beauty in
And
it.
atmosphere and place.
Yes.
The house, the rooms, the different parts of it have a place,
So
and that's
it's
exactly,
still
Katie.
engaging.
You hit it on the head. Piranesi has atmosphere. It has place. Even being desolate monuments of marble
Yeah,
and
it's
stone
not.
and statues with no real, and just birds coming through for life. Oh my god, what a perfect example to show what Kuang is
The
missing.
thing is like I feel like so many times, as you know, Maria, that I've tried to capture that essence in my writing for whatever settings at certain points, and it is hard. It is hard, but you have to have a heart to it.
Yep.
And I just didn't really feel like this book had. I hate to say it. I mean, it did have heart. There was obviously a lot of passion, especially in the depiction of the grooming and such. It came from a very visceral place, and I wish actually that had been, and I don't know how, maybe we can discuss how, if we have the time or you're interested in it on the stream, discuss how maybe she could have captured that in a more visceral way, or not visceral because it was visceral, but in a more constructive way for the characters and for the plot. But yeah,
Also, can you highlight Chris M's comment
yeah,
from
it was,
1037? Yeah. So it was unimaginative. I was expecting a modern take on Dante's Inferno, but this was just academia version of hell. So I'm going to disagree. I would say Kuang couldn't even commit to this bit. I am fine with academia version of hell if you truly embrace the ways academia can be bad, and really, like, I would have loved if, as they explored hell academia, that is where she had a lot of her revelations, because she was seeing similar things to what she had gone
but it's
through,
a hellscape.
and have it really dive into that.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it doesn't. It has a library, it has a student hall where a bunch of people are doing crazy things, and then there's nothing.
Yeah, that's weird.
It,
It just suddenly changed. And you know what? It's even funny that Maria says that, because there's an excuse for it. But I find I say excuse specifically. It's because I find it to be an excuse in a way, because it feels, I don't want to say lazy,
it
but it
is
feels
lazy.
lazy.
It feels lazy.
But when Elsbeth later on, which is a character I brought up before, but before you got on, but Elsbeth is a character that's introduced to us later on, and she ends up saying, "Yeah, once you get past like the second or third circle, everything becomes more traditional in the hellscape you would expect." And I'm like, why? Why?
Yep.
Like,
And then all of a sudden we go to the city of Dis and everybody's writing dissertations, and it's so dumb, because like you have the film of academia at the beginning, and then at the end an almost film of academia, and it's like, and when I tell you, the circles of hell, boring, blended together,
yeah,
outside of pride and desire, and again, Dis. Outside of that, the ones in the middle, the only one I can remember clearly was Wrath, because everybody was underwater squishing at each other. But like, that was like,
also,
it's blank. There's
also
nothing.
almost more important, well, not more, equally as important, because the environment has a lot to do with this part. The contrapassos are just like not like they're not there. The whole point of I feel like if you're gonna take a hell and you're gonna use it for, like, you picked it for a specific reason, besides just the general journey of going through places, which I feel like you could do in your own way creatively and not have to base it off something else. Like, if you're going to take Dante, because, and just like for reference, I took, like, not for Maria, for you guys, I took a whole class on Dante's Just the Inferno, and I wrote my final paper on comparison in the music value between the video game and how it, like, captures the essence better than the video game itself, and blah blah blah. But the point is like, that video game captures, and the video game's shit. So is the animation. But the point I'm trying to make is that it captures the graphic, almost pornographic nature of the contrapassos that the sinners are supposed to be experiencing. And the whole point of Dante's Inferno is to show those contrapassos as an ironic flip on what is to be like not ironic, I guess, because it is expected in a way, but it's unexpected. It's because they're all the punishments that are an ironic flip of what the sin was. And so if you're going to do a Dante's Inferno, why not explore the contrapassos? I was asked to do that in the class, and I used Alice in Wonderland because that seemed the most basic, because we had to pick a pilgrim into a journey. And I picked fairy tale characters and their contrapassos. So, for example, like the witch from, and I'll get off this soapbox, but the witch from Hansel and Gretel, she is in hell for sinning, obviously, and what she does is she has to constantly eat sweets, but she never is full, and she's always starving, but she has a baby in her belly, and she's pregnant, and she just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's it. And she can never give birth. She can never let go of the child she wanted to eat. So it shows that horridness of the sin,
and
but none of that happens.
That is a concept way scarier than anything that happens in this. Way scary. This book, when I tell you, I had no.
Oh yeah, nothing scary
outside of just the general. Let me tell you, you know who gave me the ick? Alice fucking Law. She did. Gave me the ick at so many points, and we'll get into that as we go into the book. But again, this world feels bland, like hell feels undefined, unwritten. It feels like if you were suddenly watching a movie and all of the CGI, like if you were in a CGI landscape and then all of the renderings disappeared and it was just like the background, like the most base. That's good. When all the detail, like there's a tree there, but it's like blocky, undefined, unactually rendered. That's because there's no
like Maria's saying, there's no exploration of the details. There's no description. I was reading my students, Holly Black, Neil Gaiman, Aragon especially. But I was trying to show mentor text for creative writing, and the descriptions are vivid. They're so vivid.
Yep. And that's something that's missing here, which makes a journey into hell, it almost becomes boring. And I think that's one of the biggest problems for me, is hell itself is the most lackluster. Like, her descriptions of Cambridge and their time in Cambridge are more vivid than anything else that happens in hell. And that should not be the case. The name of the book is Katabasis. And if that's the case, I need some impactful, cool ass hell.
Which brings me to a good point. I think that we should just bring up as a general. The pacing in this is wild. It's very strange. And what I mean by that is that we keep getting thrown back into flashbacks, and it stutters the tension into a halt.
Yep. It really does. And especially in the beginning, when some of the flashbacks are just kind of explaining the magic system. Like, in the beginning, their descent into hell and everything is paused so that the book can tell you about the magic system of this world. And be like, this is how it works. And when is a heap of rice not a heap?
Yeah.
And
a heap of sand, but yes.
A heap of sand, not a heap. And it just, like, and it happens, especially, eventually we get to the point where it starts telling you stuff that the characters in the story have hidden from you, and it starts explaining that stuff. And, like, that part was okay and you can use that in a flashback, should be used in that way. But the other bits were just like, what are we doing? Like, it was very frustrating, and Katie's right. It did really bring the pace to a halt. The other thing is, stuff would happen, and then a character, mainly Alice, would need to spend 3 to 4 pages emotionally digesting what had just happened in a very, very vivid and often, and part of this is because of a thing that is Alice has happening to her that she like.
I don't feel like, you know what's funny? So there's this, yeah, like Maria's saying, there's this thing happening to Alice. I've seen other depictions of a similar affliction, but for different reasons, of course. Actually, in fact, I feel like we read another novel, and if it's not a novel, it's definitely fan fiction, that I read where actually the exact same affliction is the problem, is that they've had something put upon their body that induces what we're going to talk about. And it's so interesting because the equivalent of a blue screen is what would happen, like your processor I've seen so many, like not so many, but maybe 2 or 3 really cool, fun, interesting, like when it happens to the character, I'm like, oh no. And like it's really fun to see that character break down because their brain can't handle what's been done to them. And it's so interesting because who doesn't love a good character fault that like handicaps the character a little bit, and so somebody else notices, and then they provide comfort, and they're like, oh my gosh, nobody's noticed this whole time about you, let me give you love. And you love that shit because it's like really like comforting, and it's like, yes, finally somebody's seen me hurting. You get cheated that.
Yeah, and part of it is that the book doesn't tell you what's happening. There are several things in this book that I am going to make the argument we should know from the beginning.
Oh, yes.
And shouldn't be like, haha, reveals. Because, number one, the thing that, because a lot of these things that are happening to her just read as panic attacks, like sensory overload, like a meltdown kind of thing. And then once it gets explained, you were like, oh, that would have been so much, like, knowing. So, and what it is, I'm just going to tell you now. Alice can't forget stuff. And Katie, if you knew during the desire scene, as she's watching all that weird shit that she can forget none of it, doesn't that make it so much more impactful? During, it becomes horrifying rather. Like, the whole time I'm like, bitch, what are you doing? Like, why are you panicking right now? And then it makes sense. So thus I sympathize with her instead of going, what the fuck? What is happening? Why are you having a panic attack right now?
The problem is by the time it's brought up, this concept, which isn't too long after, the thing is like there's nothing to mirror that first scene, and it would be a waste of pacing and time too, and text space to do it anyway. But there's nothing to bring you back to that moment to say, oh wow, look at what she went through. No, Maria's right. That's one thing I actually thought was a huge fault, is how quickly like I keep telling my students, like whenever I try to teach them creative writing, which is always a last minute effort because I don't have my lesson plan in place. But when it happens, I'm just like, just jump into the scene. Don't say once upon a time. Don't do all this other stuff. Just jump into the scene. And I give them examples. This is one of the books. You don't just jump into the scene. You actually maybe needed some other things before it. Now, granted, yes, jump into the scene, but not the scene where they're going. I would have liked Alice's, to be frank, and that maybe we can transfer into the beginning of the book after this. But I would have just really preferred if we got... okay, I'm going to say something experimental. I didn't really think about this beforehand, but I'm just going to throw it out there. What if we had gotten the scene where she kills her... spoilers, by the way. Where she... It's not much spoilers. Spoilers, guys. Get ready.
Pretty early in the book.
Get ready. Here we go. Where she kills her professor. She's like, egad. Then you go through everything she's going through. You go through the memory thing. You go through everything. And then you understand the drive she has maybe to go down because of this guilt or whatever reason. I still don't love it, but it's fine. So anyway, that being said, maybe we should get started with the book.
One thing I just want to mention as a general thing that we'll highlight as we go through this book, and a lot of people have made a critique about this that I've seen. I as per usual, I don't read a lot of stuff about the book beforehand, but kind of halfway through, I kind of had some of my opinions and I went to go look, and I've seen this get levied at the book, and I've seen people argue against it in a way that I find very not helpful. So this book has so much reference to things you would read in a doctoral or in just any graduate level work. A lot of theory, Derrida, Lacan, Foucault, Nietzsche is mentioned a ton of just like stuff. And then logic, so we've got sophisms, we've got paradoxes, a ton of shit is thrown at you. And at certain points, and one of our no, actually, so this got mentioned in our Discord, but I also read a review that talked about how sometimes it felt like you were reading a textbook with a plot, and it almost felt like the author was trying to, it's one of two things. Either all of this was very fun and she just put in too much, or the author was trying to show all of the things that she's read with and engaged with. Because as someone who was in graduate school, we're not out there throwing this shit around all the time. Like, the amount that these characters just bring shit up.
Okay, look, but they're still in college. And let me just say, Steven is a great example, I think.
He still doesn't, he's not just like, as Lacan said.
Yeah,
you know, like,
he does that exact thing to me all the time.
I don't experience it that much with him. I mean, listen, there are some, but even like Kant was his most favorite. He was like a Kant diehard, and even then, he still doesn't bring up Kant as much as these fuckers bring up Kant.
Okay, but it's also hyperbolized because it's the novel, I think.
Yeah.
So,
but the point is, some people found it hard to get through.
I
understand.
Were
reading because for most readers, a lot of this stuff, and the thing is, I've read a lot. I've read Lacan, Derrida. I've even read some Kant because of Steven, Nietzsche, Foucault.
I read a lot of these too because I ended up taking a philosophy class and then another philosophy class and then another philosophy class because my professor was so good. And then he got stolen by the University of Hawaii because they had a tenured position there for him. And he was like, yeah, peace deuces. And I was like, no, don't go. I really liked your philosophy through film class. Please come back. Let's talk about the ship and whether it's still the same ship.
Let me tell you, using philosophy to analyze media and literature is way better than just talking about the philosophy itself.
Oh, yeah.
I loved it. I only read philosophy through literature as a tool.
I never did lit with it, except for Derrida because it was required. So
yeah. You do a lot of that in my graduate courses. Was a lot of I think I still have, actually it's right under here, Theory and Criticism, Norton's Anthology.
Oh yeah,
it's what's holding my laptop up right now.
That's like when I was using my diploma as a mouse pad.
Don't do that.
I know, I don't anymore.
But the point is, you have two people who are familiar with a lot of the things that are getting thrown around, and it still was a lot. Like, just at a certain point, just simmer down and give me the story. And a lot of people had made. What do you guys think? Who's Comte?
Kant. He means Kant, but he's not spelling it right at all, I don't think.
Does he? Is that
Kant,
what he meant?
K-A-N.
K-A-N-T?
It's fine. It doesn't matter.
Continuing.
It doesn't matter.
Anyway, and the thing that gets levied at a lot of people was they're just too dumb. They're not, they don't know enough to get the references, and thus they think it makes for not good writing. And what I will say is, if your book is so bogged down that, because it's like, someone mentioned this in our Discord, if you had to have a law degree to read John Grisham's novels, nobody's reading John Grisham's novels.
I get it. Yes. But that being said, let's do the thing that Daddy William wants us to do.
Yes. Katie, do we have a Patreon?
Why are you doing this to me? Yes, we have a Patreon. I still don't know the tiers. Please just talk about it.
Okay, so we have a couple of new tiers. We have our $2 tier, which gets you access. Actually, I don't remember the new tiers. William? What
William?
Is the $2?
The
$2 tier. I love how he wrote
tier.
I love how he wrote Compt, and I was like, what the fuck is this dude saying?
I thought it meant like a compote, and I was very confused.
Like raspberry compote.
William.
William. So the $2 tier gets you access to the Discord. I think it gets you foot in the door.
He said go to Google, but I don't. Is it on the thing?
Where is it? Like, if you send me a link, I'll read it. I think he sent it to me ages ago. Let me see.
Well, you know, you could join the stream and just say if you want.
You could just send it to me. Let me.
He doesn't want to type that much. He's probably like this.
No, I think he sent me a media file with it. I'm looking because there was when we were redoing it.
Anyway, as Maria's looking, yes, guys, hey, you want to be part of a group of people who talks about books critically? Come join our Patreon. Yeah. Our Patreon is perfect for those of you that would like to read lots of interesting books that are new and popular, as well as some that are old and not as popular. And there is also some little spaces for writing if you are a writer. However, the biggest thing to note is that if you join our Patreon, you get to be in contact with a lot of other cool, sexy people.
I've got it.
All right, perfect, because I didn't know if I could keep up that disbelief. I mean, nothing.
Yeah, also, Lindbergh's correct. Will is pricklier than a hedgehog. Okay, so our $2... And to be fair to me, I haven't done this since we...
Also, I don't want to be president. Neither one of us want to be president. So it's not about also, whether or not we can.
Let's be fair. We all know I'd make a great president.
She would.
Come the fuck on. Anyway, $2... so we have our... basic tier, our lowest one, it's $2. It is our Discord access tier. You get ad-free early access to all of our episodes before they go up on YouTube, as well as access to the Discord, which is great, full of fun, sexy, smart people. We talk about stuff. Our book club Discord is where, I've processed a lot of how I felt about this book, and a lot of people were talking through it.
Your grief counseling over the disappointment you experienced.
And then we have our official patron, which is our $5 tier. You get all the other stuff and a exclusive monthly question and answer Q&A live stream, and you can submit questions beforehand, or you can ask questions in the stream. It's a lot of fun, and it's a great way to, ask us your burning questions. And you also get access to KFC, which is Katie's Fiction Corner. It is twice a month, once a month. What's?
Right now, it's I need to schedule the next two. It's approximately every 3 to 4 weeks at this point. It was every 2 weeks. It was so twice a month. I'm still aiming for that, but alas, I am a teacher and I am drowning, and so we're getting there. So it's irregular. It is not reliable. But that being said, it happens semi-regularly.
And it's like if you ever took a writing seminar or a creative writing class
in workshop.
College,
It's
a workshop for writing, which is really awesome. A lot of fun. The next tier is our book club tier. You get to do 2 live streams a month with us about books. One is the mid-month, which Will picks, and we get to talk about, I'm pretty sure this is a mid-month? Mid-month.
It is the mid-month.
And then
we're just here. We're
doing things. And then there is the normal book club, which is at the end of the month, and you guys get to vote and nominate on the books.
Ooh.
You nominate a bunch, we pick, and by we I mean Will picks 3, everybody votes, and then that's the book we all have to read. So a fourth of all the videos we do are actively impacted by our patrons. You also get access to the critique stream live streams, which are when Katie and Will look at writing from a micro level. They're looking specifically at sentence structure.
Those are actually really good ones.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun. The 2 of them are great, and they bring a lot, so I would highly recommend that.
And real quick, just a shout out for the Parasocial Legends. We have Pi, Jennifer, Stephen Alworth, and Slayer Sigma Zelta. I can't say anything. It's Pi, Jennifer, Stephen Alworth.
Oh my god, what are you doing?
And Slayer Sigma
also, why didn't you shout them out when I got to the Parasocial Legends part?
Oh.
Which I'm about to get to. So
there you go. I premised it.
No, you didn't. Next, we have our Parasocial Darlings, which get everything that everybody else got, as well as their names in the credits, and they get a special name color on Discord. And then we have and that's our $15 a month. Then we have our parasocial legends. These are people that like us so much they're willing to give us $25 a month, and they get a verbal shout out in each of our videos, and it's supposed to be at the end of the video. So just
yeah, William. Katie didn't do anything wrong. No, but the thing is these are people that really want to help. It's because, and also all of the rest of you too. Thank you very much for your contributions. It's because it makes it so that way William. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's divvied, but like it's so that way you guys had the root of the system working and running. It's because Maria and I also have like Maria does things, I do things, and we don't. It's for William, so that the factory keeps chugging.
And honestly, our Patreon is the lifeblood of what keeps us going and supports us, especially like Will and Elin did a great video on all the good Indians. And when I tell you that video's doing trash, it's doing trash. Why? The YouTube gods hate us. Okay. Nobody's watching it.
We have to get into the book. We haven't started the book. It's 51 minutes in.
Okay.
Wait,
right.
Miss Ellie Snow says, I'm supposed to get a special color. William?
Please talk to Papa Will. Well, anyway, so the book starts with our girl, Alice Law, and she's getting ready to go into hell. Why? Because her academic advisor in her doctorate, her doctoral studies, has been heckin' deaded. He has gone to hell. One of the things we learn about this world very quickly is that everyone goes to hell. There is no heaven. You go to hell, you repent for whatever sins you did, and then you get reincarnated. That's how this world works. Also, can I say, for a world where we know how shit works, the fact that Christianity and all of these different religions is still so much of a thing, wild. Also, I've made this argument in other books before. If you have worlds where magic is real and that that's such a fundamental way the world changes, I much prefer when it actually has impacts on what the world looks like. But that's not what, to be fair, Kuang isn't trying to do that. She just was like, what if this world, but magic, which is a fine premise, but also magic would fundamentally change how our world looks. Anyway, and so she's like, oh man, I really need to rescue my professor because like he's the best and he was going to open all the doors for me and he's like the best. And you know, even though everybody said he's like the worst and he's terrible to his advisees.
Can I just say, as a side note, so it's funny, Maria's description, that is the general gist of the rest of the book. And I thought, oh, maybe we'll get elucidated to a more complex character formula for him. And as we continued going, he came into, like, at first I thought fat, tubby, like, gross, disgusting, patriarchal, like, you know, advisor guy. Then as it progressed, I was like, oh, it's like Sherlock from the BBC. And I was like, maybe he's like an asshole, but a sexy, like, House. He's like a sexy asshole. Mm-hmm, and then as I kept going, I was like, I don't know who this man is. I don't know who he is. He's just a blob.
Also, sometimes I think the author doesn't quite know because there's a portion of the book where she says one thing, and then this other portion where she's like, but he wasn't that bad. He wasn't like those abusive advisor assholes. And you're like, anyway. So yeah, she's like, oh, I need to go get my advisor. He's the smartest boy in school. He's like the top of the field. Who else is going to advise me and take me across the finish line?
Well, it's also the
station.
Yeah, and it's also that like lost value sunk value. Sunk cost, whatever. It's like, I've already suffered so much for this one person. This person better do what I expected this person to do. Otherwise, I suffered for nothing, which does ring a bit of I understand that.
At the beginning, she doesn't mention that particular thing, but that is something we're going to see as the book goes on. But she's like, you know, he was the hardest advisor, but I need him, and he's the only one who can do what I really need, so I have to go rescue him. Also, I kind of was the one that accidentally killed him. Because one of the things you learn is that, like, they make pentagrams and stuff, and you have to be, like, super precise with it, but Professor Grimes, he doesn't check his own work. He doesn't double check shit. He gets his undergrads or his graduate students to look at it for him and double check and make sure he's not going to blow himself to smithereens. And she was not doing well. And this is the first hint. The book does foreshadowing, but in a way that is very,
Heavy-handed.
yeah, I don't know if it's supposed to be this unsubtle, but you're immediately like, oh, motherfucker assaulted her, like immediately off the bat. And the book is gonna kind of like hold it close to its chest
No, but yeah,
and
but
try
it's
to
so.
reveal it later. Like, no, give it to me now. Just say the
Well,
thing.
okay, so you may argue, right? Oh, maybe that's like, like she wanted it to be obvious but not address it just yet. But the problem you have to ask yourself is, what tactical advantage do you have as a writer to reveal this right now, get it over and done with, and stop wasting your time alluding to it versus waiting and holding on to it till later. And the thing is I think it wastes more of her space and takes up more of the plot, especially in the circle. Like, because the whole reason they're there, her and Peter, as well, because we're going to introduce Peter, is for the professor. And so it's it's an anchor point. It's a gravitational pull. So you inevitably have to address the relationship. And so as you like go through it and it keeps alluding to it like it's some big secret. And the thing is from the very first mention, which is like in the second chapter or first chapter or something, there's like one little thing, something about breath or something. And you're like, oh, he assaulted her.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay. And I thought it would just stop there and move on and maybe come back later. And that would make more sense to me. But instead, there's a ton. It's like feeding the birds. Like there's just crumbs all over the sidewalk. And you're just like, yes, 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 I see. Those are crumbs. And it just wastes your time.
And because what I think she was trying to do was say that this thing has happened, but Alice isn't dealing with it. She's not thinking about it. Because how it gets thrown at you the first is Alice was like, she was supposed to have double checked his work that morning, but she wasn't in a good place. She was doing really badly and was haunted by. And then it throws a couple of little random words and you're like, oh, he assaulted her and she's had to continue working with him processing that. And we don't know to what degree or anything, but you kind of already know. And so I think Kuang was trying to make it so that it was like,
that desperation.
But she's not acknowledging it. But
Correct.
It doesn't get mentioned like that. It keeps getting thrown out. And then when it is finally told to you, that is because our two characters have something they're hiding. And we're going to introduce Peter, but they both have something they're hiding. Peter's is a legit reveal, but then Grimes' assault is told in the same way that Peter's reveal is told, which makes it seem that both of these two
are
things
the same
are
level,
revealed.
And it's not.
And it's not.
Oh my God, thank you.
We knew it the whole time. And the only thing that is a surprise, the character tells you before because the reveals are given in a flashback. Peter's reveal is a flashback and her reveal is in a flashback. But the actual surprise thing that the reader didn't know is just given to you verbally.
Not dumb.
Yeah.
So real quick, I'm not going to say anything about it because I want us to talk about it and we need to start really actually going through the plot. But real quick, I just want to say that is what hit me the first time you get revealed to Peter's secret. It just slapped me in the face. I'm like, you're saying? I mean, don't get me wrong. I am sure what it is. And I know several people with it. So, like, I know it sucks ass. Like, I know it's awful. I know it disrupts your whole life. I know it's it's a thing as we get to it. I just don't want to say too much about it. That's awful. But what's unfair, I think, and I think was a faux pas on Kuang's part, was equating it to the same level of I'm sure it is the same level of but I think it's a faux pas. I think it's a faux pas.
The reason for me it's a faux pas is that hers isn't an actual reveal. His is a thing the reader didn't know.
So it feels like it's more important.
But it's put on the same level. So what I'm saying is, Kuang thinks she's revealing this to us because she told us these two pieces of information in the same way. One is an actual reveal and one functionally is not. Kuang thinks she's revealing something because of how she's like, I'm using like analyzing how she told Peter's story to say that if she told Peter's story that way in the exact same way and it was a reveal, she thinks this is a reveal. And it's not. It saps all the energy out of it. You can do Peter's works as a reveal of, oh, this is what was happening to him because we didn't know about it and we weren't in motherfucker's head the whole time. Yes. That's what I'm saying. So to put them like that, it doesn't work because we've been in Alice's head the whole time. And so we had all the crumbs. We knew it. And so at some point we should know what happens. But the way it is told is as if it's a reveal, and it doesn't work. Anyway, back to the plot. This book, it's just going to take forever. Yes?
Yeah, it is. But real quick, as a sole side note, it technically works because, like you said, we're third person limited to Alice. So it would make sense that we would get more breadcrumbs. So this is like, I'm just like, I guess, devil's advocate is what I'm saying. To a certain degree, I get still what you're saying completely, but I just want to address it.
Yeah.
Is that, technically, yeah, that does make sense. We would know more to the little like nods to what happened to Alice versus him, which we don't have a perspective of. So it would be a reveal, but I just don't like the way it was presented, honestly. It's third person limited. Yeah. So anyway, let's like really get into it. So the point is like, so at the beginning, Alice is drawing the pentagram. She's like, I'm ready to go. You get a few asides here and there. The reason why it's been so like back and forth so far is because the book does quite a bit of that, and also there's a lot of contentious points that you can draw back to the beginning. And so anyway, Peter comes in and he's like, yo bitch, what you doing? And she's like, nothing. Get out.
And you immediately get the sense that these two are academic rivals. And the book tells you they used to be very close, but they're not close anymore. And you're like, oh, these guys had the hots for each other, and then there was like some third act breakup thing, misunderstanding that happened, and it's just carried on for a very long time. And Peter's like, and one of the things you learn is that it's been a couple of months, not a couple of months, maybe like a week or two since Grimes died, and it's because Alice has been researching how to get into hell, but every time she goes to the library some books are missing, and it's because Peter was also researching how to get into hell as well, because they're both Grimes's advisees and they're both gonna go in, and Peter's like, oh, you're gonna do that, and she's like, you can't come with me, and he's like, but I can.
I would never. He was like, I would never let you go by yourself. You can't go by yourself. Who knows what you might encounter? We're going to do it together. And she's like, oh, something, something. And then he like very like passive aggressive, cleverly like does something to her pentagram and is like, oh, okay, there it is. And she's like, oh, he's so clever. And so the point is you get this vibe that it's like, it is, if you read Emily Wilde, the same exact vibe you get when Bamblebee walks in, except for a lot less joyful, a lot less fun, and a lot less interesting. Because it's not portrayed with love. There's an anger, and there's a lack of, like I said, endearment. That's the word, endearment.
Endearment, that's actually the perfect word. I was going to say a lack of joy, but endearment is so much better.
There is no endearment between the two. I mean, you're told it, but you don't feel it. I think that's a big issue with the characters, is you're told something, but it doesn't show itself. And so, anyway, Peter makes his thing. They're like, oh, you have lembas bread, which I also, like, rubbed me the wrong way for some reason. But, yeah, like, apparently Grimes is, you learn later on, because he was in the military, in the army, and he made, what is it called? A what flask?
The perpetual flask.
Perpetual flask, which reminded me of D&D. And then the lembas bread, which is described exactly as from Lord of the Rings. And I thought, oh, it's going to tell us that some dweeby, like, Tolkien nerd in the magician sector made lembas bread and named it. No, that never comes up. So it's just called lembas bread. And I was just like, that's so cringy. I know that's such a baby
thing. And for
thing.
all the references it makes to other things, having a few references to Tolkien, you know, you could have...
I don't know. It seemed more like it came across as a lazy way to name something so you knew the function of it rather than a fun reference, because there was no structure behind it to say, oh, this is a fun reference. Instead, it's just like, yeah, that's what it's called. Yeah. It's like my own work. And so it felt very like cheesy.
I want to address something in the comments. Bananamus said...
Where? Which one?
The 11-13 one? Start there.
11-13.
Okay. I think if you're going to hold off on a reveal that is very obvious to the audience, then it should be held in. Then it should instead be held off because it will be impactful for the characters. Yes, that's not the case here. And then go to their second comment, please.
Yes.
And it definitely should still hold weight when revealed. Pairing it with another random reveal is a funny way to dampen your big reveal.
Yes!
So, yes. And the other thing is the way it's revealed, and the problem is having it in flashback instead of her actually telling him, because the
Takes the
important
tension.
thing, the reason it's important in this moment from a character perspective is she's finally telling somebody about it, outside of this one lady she told previously, but she's finally telling Peter about it. She's finally giving him the context for her actions that he's been missing this whole time.
And you barely get his reaction.
You barely get his reaction, but also you don't actually get to hear her tell him. We get a flashback about we get a flashback about it, and that's the problem. The flashback about it makes it feel like it's a reveal to the reader rather than her finally copping up to the fact. Because again,
Correct.
It's not a reveal to the reader.
Correct.
We know.
Oh, no, you just hit it on the head.
Yes.
It's written to a reveal to the reader because you go into a flashback and you're told it third person limited from that flashback. You're not told dialogue based what happened, so you don't get that satisfaction of it being released.
It's a reveal to Peter. It's not a reveal to us. But then Peter's reveal to her about what the context she's been missing for all of his actions is told in a flashback, which makes sense because it's the first time we as the readers are getting it. So it makes sense to tell Peter's that way.
Yes, correct.
It does not make sense to tell hers that way. And again, it's kind of, and the other thing, I'll get there. I have so many
we jumped.
Anyway,
we jumped again.
Back to this. So they decide, okay, we're gonna go into hell, and then we get our first flashbacky like context thing where the book's like, now I shall tell you about how the magic works in here. And
and it's a different narrator, and I hate it.
And also, the different narrator's quality is not as good as the main narrator's quality. And you really notice it in the last chapter where they're using both of them to talk in the same scene, and the one's is crisp and clear, and the other one's is super muffled. Doesn't work. I don't love it. But anyway, and then we go back and it's them, and they're like starting into hell, and they end up at this one thing where they can kind of look and they can see their campus, and they can see two of their classmates being like, oh my God, they went into hell.
Yeah, which is weird. But and like useless because those characters obviously don't matter. But we look up, they look up into the sky and they see a reflection. They call it something specific, and it's like a known phenomena where you can see the reflection of Earth or something like that. And like that lost me a little bit, but I was also going very fast at that point. But then what happens is they're walking, they see limbo. They're like, oh, the fields of, and I forget the term. But they're like, okay, well, he may still be here because he's freshly dead, and a lot of people linger here before they want to try to attempt the reincarnation route. Because, real quick, what is accepted is each religion is correct in their depiction of hell. It's just they use different names for similar things. And at the end of the day, you have the different surfaces and levels of hell of different sinners, which really actually gives more credence, I think, in a certain way to Dante. But I also am not a reader of these other things, so I do not know the references. I just know what little they tell you of it. But the point is that they share a commonality, which is the general essence of reincarnation. No matter what, the Christians got it wrong is the big thing that's the book says. The Christians got it wrong. There's no eternal suffering. It is you are reincarnated. And I did like the description. And actually, this is my favorite part of the book. My entire favorite part of the book is when it goes into the concept and it discusses it in like a more paper-esque manner of how, and when I say paper-esque, I mean like a report or something like that, like an article, nonfiction piece. Where it talks about how there's a limited amount of, energy, and it brings back several philosophers and the idea that energy cannot be destroyed, it can only be reused. And I really liked that concept. I wish, instead of just telling us this like this, it had been weaved into dialogue and it had been weaved into depictions in the setting or whatever, and that had been used that way, because that would have been cool as hell. But no pun intended. But that being said, so they're in limbo and they're like, okay, well, let's find him. And there's a plot hole here, I found out, by the way. Did you know what I'm talking about?
I don't know. Let's see. Go.
The totem thing. So what happens is this, and I'm going to jump ahead a little bit to explain the plot hole. I think it's a plot hole or character hole. Is that Alice brings with her a totem that's supposed to help her use as a compass in order to find the professor. However, what she doesn't realize is that, if I remember correctly, wood is dead. And so the whole concept that Peter explains to her is like, no, that won't work. You actually can't use that as the compass. It's because the wood is from a specific period. It's not from the period.
it's not just that, it's that he didn't actually interact with it enough. Like it was
Yes.
an award on his desk, and
Yes,
so
yes.
what becomes the marker is the wood itself, not the emotional value that Grimes had to it.
Correct.
So it would lead her to a carpenter, a woodworker,
Which is a great
an
concept.
arborist.
Yeah, anybody who had any
arborist.
like love for wood. Sorry. Oh, that's the middle schooler in me. Anyway, the point is then Peter's like, no, what you need is something like this, like food, or whatever. And so he brings out tobacco, the smokes, port, and what else? Lembas bread.
Yeah, I think it was Limbus. Right?
And then he burns it, and the smell brings forth some students. But before I go any further, really quickly, later on, and I should have made a note of this because I'm going to forget. Maybe you can remember. Later on, it's brought up again that Peter and Alice have a misunderstanding of principles. And Alice is like, oh, that's what it is. Alice is like, Peter, what? You've never done close reading, historical reading, which is an absurd thing for a graduate. Are you kidding me? Of course they must have done that.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
Like, even if you're a logician, you still would have to learn how to, like, take something out of just its context on the page and put it in historical context. Historiography is so important to understanding.
That's normal. I know
basic...
that, and I don't have a master's or anything. Like, that is just a basic understanding in academia. Go ahead.
It is the dumbest scene, because he's like, but I just took what this lady wrote at face value. And she's like, but it was written like 1,000 years ago, and given what she knew, this is probably this, and this, and he's like, oh my god.
Oh, I never thought about that.
People do? And
that's crazy.
Like, what the fuck?
But the thing that's insane is that in the scene that I just described, he already brought that concept up.
Yep.
He said it right there. He said, no, emotional value, not good enough. You need the time. And he already said that. So later on, when he's like, no, I never thought about that. It's like, yes, you did. You actually corrected her on this earlier. So I don't understand why the author is doing this. But anyway, sorry, that was something that really irritated me.
Yeah. So yeah, they get to the fields that is basically limbo, and they meet some students that died in a fire that is actually Grimes's fault. And this is the beginning of the book being like, Grimes has sinned. Grimes is a heckin' sinner. And I say it like that because you have this problem, and one of the things that makes Alice so unlikable, and the thing is, it's really hard because I understand what Kuang was trying to do. Kuang was trying to show, here is someone who is a victim of someone in a position of power over them, who molded them, and like, she's in that stage of abuse where you're making excuses for your abuser, but it makes her talk about other people and women and other advisees of Grimes really shittily. Like, she talks about people who failed to live up to Grimes's standards and stuff like that, and just women in general terribly. And it's not huge in this moment, but it comes up a little bit. Basically, these 4 kids died because of Grimes, and there, when Peter lights the port, tobacco, and Lembas bread on fire, they come and they're like, oh, you're from Cambridge? We're magicians. And they're like, why haven't you? Because it's been like 10 years since these guys died. Can I just
say that this scene was very compelling? I liked this scene. I thought to myself so far up until this point, wow, this is kind of boring. I don't really like it that much. But once the port thing happened and Peter brought that up, I was like, oh, that's kind of clever. And then these characters, these shades, are actually really fun to listen to. They have real depth to them, which is kind of like, or I felt like they did. I really felt like I understood them a little bit individually, even though they're a conglomerate of each other, I thought it was very smart to have, there's one character who died of smoke inhalation, so she's more whole and more put together, whereas the other 3 are burnt to a crisp and all messed up, so they're more like nom, 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 nom. And so it's really, I thought that was a smart idea to have the dichotomy between that, because then you can have that full conversation versus that cohesive conversation of the several mingling together. And it made it very dynamic and interesting to listen to, especially when they were trying to talk to them. And I loved it. I thought it was really good, and I thought, oh, maybe this will be a good book.
And it's interesting because it's the first time you get brought up if you have a hell that works like this, then death is effectively not death. You still maintain who you are. I think the thing that is very scary for a lot of people about death is the loss of
Forgetting.
self.
Yeah. Which it gets brought up in this moment, which I liked, because it's the idea that the young men and women in the scene are like, reincarnate? No way. Could you imagine being reincarnated as a rice paddy picker or a cow milker? And to imagine not to be clever. And I loved that.
What if we were dumb?
Yeah.
And also just the fear of losing themselves and like everything. And they're at that stage of like being young, that they're like the world is their
sense
oyster,
of self.
And they have a sense of that invincibility that the young have. And so it's really interesting because they're like, it's been 10 years, my guys. Why haven't you passed on? And they were like, absolutely not. Who wants to do that bullshit?
We would rather be magicians than be reincarnated and find peace, which is a huge theme for this whole book. And I thought it was a great introduction. I was like, okay, I see what you're doing. I like what you're doing. And then none of that comes to any fruition for me, at least like with my knowledge of it.
Yeah. So then we have, so then they're like, oh, we need to get through. Grimes isn't here, obviously, because he would have come to the tobacco. And so they go try to cut through the line and see if he's in the line, and he's not. And they also can't cut through. Like, they can't, she tries cutting, and they realize that the shades can have physical impact. If a shade really focuses on a part of their body, they can give it emphasis. So someone elbows her, and she actually gets hurt because she was trying to cut, and they were like, oh, man, we can't just wait in this line. It's going to take forever.
And as a small side note, too, prior to this moment, a cat actually runs across the dunes, and it's a cat from Cambridge, and it's then acknowledged that cats, just like in many other things, have the ability to cross over back and forth at their will and whim, and the cat's just like, what's up, bitches, and then it just fucks off, and that's it.
And also, can you highlight Sonia's
this one?
comment, the one before that? So Sonia says, I would be fine with Azrael's casual internalized misogyny and dismissal of weaker people not made for academia if it was challenged by the narrative and used as a growth moment. But it doesn't sound like that was the case. And it
in a weird way, it is, but not in a good way, I feel like.
The thing is, Alice comes face to face with all of the things that, you know, the people that she looks down upon were like, watch out for, and then she still has these thoughts.
I didn't like the dressel of that. I did not like it.
And the thing you're supposed to come away with that the book doesn't do well is you're supposed to be like, Alice, you were wrong the whole time. But the
that's
book
not
itself,
fair.
Yes, but also the book itself doesn't like
allow her to grow. It does not allow her to grow.
There's never a moment. Sorry, continue.
No, go ahead. I interrupted.
There's never a moment where she's like, wow, the way I've been thinking about, you know, like there's never a moment where she actually acknowledges the thing, or the book was like,
there does come a point where she does. It's a flashback, which I think is very like ineffectual in some ways, but also could have been effectual. And she has a moment, when we get to it, I'll talk about it. I hate the scene. I hate the scene. I hate the scene. It makes me angry. When I listen to it, it made me furious and upset. And I actually cried a little, but not in a good way. I cried frustrated with the author because in the scene, I thought that, yes, this is obviously something that probably happens in real life, but without any other padding for this story, it was a moment that could have built some type of love. Like, how are you going to love a story if you can't love the characters? And in this moment, not that I needed to love this rando character that came up, but it could have been a great moment for growth. And instead, Alice says, yeah, I learned I was wrong. And the other character's like, eat shit. And it's just like, it's not.
She still doesn't actually learn. She still doesn't acknowledge.
She doesn't learn because it reinforces her thinking of, yeah, no, I just need all women eat shit.
Yeah, but also she never turns around and thinks the way I thought about other women was part of the problem. The book never addresses how Alice's active.
It sort of does, but very, very briefly.
It's so, if it does, it's like
ephemeral. It's ephemeral.
It's a feather duster with one feather, and they're like tickling your nose.
Correct.
But not enough for you to ever fucking sneeze. Well, it's just so.
Anyway, we got to continue with the plot
yes.
base.
And
so they're in a line, and they're like, wow, we can't get past the line, so they rock climb up a giant skeletal wall. And this is when you learn that Alice is from Colorado, and Alice used to do rock climbing. And this never really comes up again, except for the fact that she's really depressed, and so she has lost muscle mass. But the point is they rock climb. Peter's afraid of heights. She helps him. Well, they make it to the other side.
Yes. And then they have to go down, which is even worse. And then they have to like walk for
and then ages. And then they sleep together. But Peter didn't bring anything because he's a freaking idiot. And Alice is like, yeah, I brought like what's it called? A hypothermia blanket. Do you want to share? And he's like, I guess. And so they share. And she wakes up and he's curled around her. And she's like, I feel something hard on my thigh. And it's like, and he's like, oh my God, my boner. And it's the dumbest scene.
I hated this scene.
It's
Number
so
one,
dumb.
tonally, it doesn't fit. If this was written actually written like Emily Wilde, or I don't know, this needed a different tone to make this
on my face scene, after that.
Yeah, it's not great. I didn't like it, but they also like they basically, she's like, because I'm from Colorado and I did camping and hiking and stuff, I know how to pack for an adventure. And he bought like 20 pounds of chalk. And
I actually really would have liked to have had, instead of the flashbacks on college, onto her life before college, so you can see the difference in her personality before she became a depressed piece of garbage and after she became a depressed piece of garbage.
Yeah, it's wild. It's a weird scene, but also, yeah, because like one of the things I'm going to say is, despite the book being like, yes, Alice, you know, she went hiking and she did rock climbing. Let me tell you, I can't tell you if she has a relationship with her parents.
I can't tell you
if she has siblings. I can't tell you. This book, randomly, they were like, yes, she did Colorado stuff. And then one time, she tipped over into a no, she didn't. They were going to go tubing, but then
she sat in the car and the river was closed because it was almost time for dusk, but somebody was drowning and they drowned.
Yes, and so now she don't like water no more. And like that's the most in-depth scene you get about her. But when I tell you, Alice
has no past
on the on Earth in school.
Correct.
That's it.
She has
no idea.
No past.
Yes, none.
And
zero.
By the way, you know more, and what's funny is that you're given, I have to fix this, my hair looks wet at this point. That's how hot and sweaty I am. Oh my God, it's just really hot in my room right now because it's very sunny out. But you know more about Peter's past, and you are barely given anything, but you're given enough that it's appropriate, and you understand the fill-ins and the nature of it. It's actually very competently told. I think Peter's flashback is very competently written as far as a flashback goes to tell you the things you need to know at the pace you need to know it. And so I know about his parents. I don't know about Alice. Alice, like Maria said, she was born on Cambridge campus the moment she walked on. Yeah, I just gotta fix my hair, but keep talking.
That's it. And it's just a really weird thing, especially because the book's like, Pumpkin, why are you in there? Get out! Oh no, that's Lady. Lady, why are you in there? Let me tell you, cats are fucking weird. Going in places they shouldn't. And you tipped it over.
Are you talking to a cat?
Yeah, I am. Sorry.
I can't hear you. I just saw you. I heard out.
But anyway, so they get across the thing, and when they finally glimpse the first circle of hell, and they're like, oh, what is happening? Oh, it's a campus! It's a campus! We're on a college campus! And they're like, oh, all of those different versions of hell were true, because hell reflects what you are, what you're dealing with. So like all the academics come to this hell, I guess, and then other people are in a different version. I don't fucking know.
I didn't like that. But that being said, Sonia kills me because I agree. She's also, knowing my fair share of rock climbing aficionados, I can tell you Kuang didn't do her research because they all make rock climbing their entire personnel will never shut up about it. That is completely true. That is completely true. Because when Maria started rock climbing for 5 seconds, that's all she talked about.
It was Gina. Once. It wasn't me.
Okay, no, it was Gina then.
No, Gina didn't do it. It was that Jackie. Jackie started doing rock climbing.
No, Jackie too. No, but somebody. I thought it was you or Gina.
Once.
I think Gina started rock climbing, and she was like, rock climbing, and I was like, super cool, I'm glad you have a sport. But it's the same thing with it's not just rock climbing, any sport you're in, once you join the sport, yeah, it's your life because that's what you're giving it to. But yeah, no, anyway, continue.
I did that with archery a bit for a minute there.
You
but
did.
Anyway, so yeah, and they're like, wow, it's a college campus. And they look upon it at first, and there's all these different buildings. And the first one they come up to is a library, and it is the Library of Pride. And they go in, and there's all these books, and there's all these shades of the people who are actually dead. And they're like incorporeal, but they can make themselves slightly corporeal. But anyway, the shades are like rushing about, grabbing books, and they're studying, and they're writing stuff. And on the wall it says, what is good, or something about good.
What is the nature of good?
What is the nature of good? And they're like, oh my god. And then this one shade bumps into Alice and then starts crying because their thing was rejected and they have to do it all over again.
It's their 17th time. They won't pass him. He's upset, and this other kind of like, ho ho ho, Merry Christmas guy comes along with his pipe, and he's just like, you can't be crying
out
stacks.
Here. I've made
you have to go into the study room.
Yeah. I made you a reservation so you can cry alone and not disrupt other people studying. And basically they learn
which is funny. That was actually a good, this is like this is when I still had hope, because then what happens is this guy is definitely the dragon of the stacks type of vibe, especially with the puffing of the, I think that Kuang could have built on that a little bit more and made it more fantastical, because one thing that came up, and I thought it was going to come up here, is that Alice and Peter look to each other and they're like, well, we know of no deities that may linger here. And when they talk to him, the professor guy, he's like, oh, Peter, that's your name? You're a Cambridge man? Oh, I love Cambridge men. Come along. And then he just completely ignores Alice. And so Alice is thinking to herself, well, he doesn't seem like a deity. And deities never come up really, almost ever. Except for and it's really interesting because when they do, it's more of Asian influence, which could be an interesting concept, actually, for the author herself's influence upon it. That actually, I thought that maybe that would build into something, and maybe you can confirm or deny that for me later. But anyway, and so they follow him along, they go into his office, and Alice is like, oh, wait, how did he get these African, tapestries? How did he get these tusks here? And so it's like a proper office, from in the old days. And so he ends up, long story short, he's like, yeah, Peter, you have to stay here and be my colleague. And Peter's like, and Alice is like,
And basically they learned this guy's decided he's not doing the trial. He has no interest in actually studying and submitting papers, because he has taken it upon himself to become the person
the headmaster person.
Of the stacks. He's making sure people follow the rules, blah blah blah, and there's this whole thing about the rules and what the rules are, kind of thing, and what you do, and then the ending is going to be like, but is any of it? And it's just and it doesn't follow up enough on it. Well, and we'll get there. But
so what I thought was going to happen in this moment is, especially with the pipe, I thought he was going to turn into a dragon or some type of fire-breathing creature, or a shade that has smoke and flame because that he keeps in check, or something. I don't know, just something interesting because it's the books, and so you can't catch the books on fire. Or better yet, we're told that really famous thinkers and all of that in the Pride section have bronzed, and so you bronze at certain points, and so there are these statues of Galileo and Newton, and they've become bronze statues. And I thought, oh, maybe this guy is going to call upon them. I didn't really see any foreshadowing for that, so I didn't really believe that, but I was like, oh, maybe that'll come into play in a certain regard. They'll come alive to stop or something, or whatever, or something, just anything. And there was really no obstacle to this. Instead, what happens is Alice is like, here's a logical problem, solve it. And the guy is like, oh, I can solve it, here you go. And she's like, no, that's not the solution. And he's like, well, you're right. And then he's like, oh, but what? Oh, no, and then he gets stuck in his own thoughts, and so they escape. And once they escape, it's fine. And I'm like, I mean, fair enough. We're on easy level mode. It's the first real area, so maybe that would work that way. And so I was okay with that at that point. However, after that, Maria,
Yeah, so the problem is almost everything functions like that, where they don't actually have to interact with what anyone else is actually like. They're not going through the trials of hell. There is no expectation for them to do the things, solve the things, none
Which
of
is
that. And
boring, or at
which
least
is,
show me how they cheat more.
yes, like give me more stuff. And also, there's just this idea of like nobody's really moving through anything. Like Galileo and Newton are still there as bronze statues, and this
Yeah.
guy has chosen to not engage. And you think it's going to really say something about that outside of just, having too much pride to engage with basic research. I don't know. But I thought this was going to be like, I thought the circles of hell were really going to be different parts of academia, like in a really fundamental way, and like getting to Lord Yama. So, because basically Hades, Lord Yama, the guy in charge of hell, it looks different
Satan.
depending, Satan, it looks different depending on what version of hell
Whatever
you're
you believe
thinking
in.
about.
Yeah.
And so I thought he was going to be the dean. Like they were going to have to get to
Yes,
the
of
dean's office.
course.
I thought this was going to be an actual, like, again, I
Maria.
mentioned this. Yes, I mentioned this before, where like you can commit. You have to commit to the bit. If you're going to say, "Oh, hell is Cambridge or is a campus,"
All
because
the
that's
dark
what.
sides of Cambridge that you know exist, but you have not acknowledged.
But also, because the idea is a lot of the people that are here are scholars. So it's kind of like this version of hell. Because again, the book specifically says all the different versions of hell are reflective of what the person coming into
Yes.
hell expects to see, what they're familiar with. And so, like, this is the slice.
Wouldn't it have been interesting if Peter wasn't as academic as Alice, and Peter was more Catholic or something else, anything else? And so they experienced different versions of the same experience, and then you had to deal with that at certain points depending on his belief system.
That would be great. It would also make way more sense about why suddenly there was no actual discussion, like
Cambridge stuff.
the campus disappears. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's where you think at this point you think we're gonna get into hell as a campus, and where this is
That's
going
what I
to be
thought, yeah.
how this is going to be how Alice processes some of the shit. Like hell is going to help them process the trauma
Yes.
they have gone
It's
through
the
at
it's the
Grimes'
stages
hands.
of grief.
Yes.
That's what I thought it was
That's
going to
what I
be.
thought. This is like you have two traumatized little bibis,
And these are the stages of grief, but through hell, and that,
and by
and
the end
also
of it,
also as a side note, we did not mention this, but they said it in chat. Unless you did and I forgot. But when they go to hell, they sacrifice 30 years of their lifespan, by the way.
yes. Oh, yeah. So that's the other thing. To come to hell, to rescue Grimes, they had to sacrifice half of whatever their lifespan would have been naturally. So let's say they were going to live 80 years. They've sacrificed 40 years of, or whatever their lifespan they have left. They sacrifice half of it. So you can look at it as 30 years. Can I tell you, given everything we know, even at this point in the story, the fact that both of these dumbass bebes wanted to go to hell to rescue a professor that both of them almost immediately you see have issues with, I was like, why are we doing this? Like, and listen, I get she's guilty because she thinks she killed him, but my girl, you're gonna sacrifice, from the start, you're kind of like, why'd they do this? But anyway, so they do the whole pride thing. It's the library. They don't actually engage with any of it. They again, the guy they're dealing with is just a shade. It's just a guy stuck in hell who won't process anything, who wouldn't let them leave, and then they just distracted him with a logic problem, and then they fuck off. And then
Which
the
is
next
okay. Like, it's not the worst.
Listen, you're right, if it had developed and each stage got harder, because what starts to happen is you begin to feel like the stakes are not high. And then at some point in the book, suddenly there is real stakes, even though the thing that is causing the stakes should feel creepy and terrifying, and they don't. But anyway, so then we go to the second circle. We're
Which is
in a different
desire,
building.
which is really cool in the Dante's video game, even though it's really shitty because there's like Bathsheba, like, nah, and it's like, by the way, if you have not listened to the Dante's Inferno video game soundtrack, you are missing out on life. The composition of those songs is absolutely stellar. I have it on vinyl because I love it so much. I highly recommend the Whores of Babylon as a audio soundtrack for the Circle of Desire. It is so good. But anyway.
Yeah. So Desire is the student hall.
And they're all just fucking each other. That's
and
it.
Every
or
room
addictions.
Every room just has people engaging with their weird kinks and addictions. And it's almost...
Isn't there like a foot moment?
There's a foot moment. There's also a dog filleting moment.
I forgot. I think I erased that from my mind.
Yeah. So it's just... And the thing is, and it's just people where they get to be in these rooms and they get to experience the thing that gets them off forever. And so
that sounds like heaven.
And that's the thing. That's the weird part is I'm like, why are any of them? They just get to be in their thing, in their addiction, in their obsession, in their whatever
forever?
The thing is that got them going forever. And you have to like choose to leave, I guess, because that's the thing is they never actually tell you. So we know for Pride, the way to get out of Pride was you had to put your pride aside, do this basic thing, figure out, write the essay for what is the true nature of good, what is the nature of good, submit it and get it passed. And you had to keep doing it and you had to kind of push past. Okay, fine. I don't love it because I guess it's putting your pride aside to do this thing instead of feeling it's beneath you.
It's actually funny that you say that because upon reflection, I realized that is what was trying to be said, but it is not depicted that way very well because if that was the case, then the character that was crying that Alice bumped into, or not, she didn't bump into, she heard him cry.
That guy has no pride left.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing, though. He said, originally when I came in, I knew all about this. This is my 17th rejection. And and he's like, he specifically says, I finally read all the things. I even read so-and-so. And then, like, he's like, I read them all. So at that point, he should have been accepted. Yep. So what we really should have had was a scene of celebration where he's like, yeah! Woo! And then, like, he's excited, and then maybe the other guy plods along, and he's like, don't celebrate out amongst all your people, so celebrate in a study room, or whatever. Yep.
This guy is the epitome of pride, because he has so much pride, he won't even engage with the trial. He won't even try it. It's beneath him to do it.
Exactly. That's why he could never move on. That makes so much more sense.
And it does, because the guy who's crying because it's his 17th time and he hasn't done it, and he's done at this point, he finally did all the things he was supposed to. That guy he has no pride left. He has been stripped of his pride.
He's been stripped of everything.
Yep. And so you're like, why? What is the point of this? Anyway, then you get to Lust or to Desire, and everybody's just doing weird shit in rooms. And this is the first scene where Alice is going to have a full-on panic attack, you think. And as she's seeing all of these things, like, she's freaking out about it. Now, I understand some of it is weird, but some of it is just, like, sex stuff, and, like, and like, some of it is not even, like, sexual, it's drug related, but she's having, like, it is overloading her, and she fully freaks out about it. Peter at first is like, whoa, look at all this weird shit, you know? And then she like, they end up getting out of, like, they just walk out of Desire. There's no challenge. She has what you think is a panic attack, and you walk out of Desire. Now, I'm going to reveal something to you that the book hasn't revealed to you, but would make the scene legitimately way better.
Tell us.
Our girl Alice has a tattoo put upon her by Grimes that makes it so she cannot forget anything. Her brain is inundated. Since she got this tattoo put upon her by Grimes, she can forget nothing. Everything is in her brain, and it overloads her. Like, she gets sensory overload and input overload because of this.
So, two things I want to say to this specifically, because I've already read characters depicted with this issue, and I've loved other explorations of it. Not all of them that I've read, but two of them in particular stand out. And real quick, I just want to say, if that is the case, then what we should have received up until this moment were certain things, such as the fear that she had when she thought Peter was going to fall. I wish that had swirled around in her mind and haunted her. And all the graphic, specific details of the fear of losing her compatriot in that moment, like something like that or also like maybe just like other things coming up, or even moments where because she later on says she gets lost in a moment and she doesn't remember who she is and everything. It's because the human brain was never meant to retain all these memories. I would have preferred her then to maybe act differently suddenly, and then Peter be like, what do you mean? And she's like, and then like literally the way it's portrayed, like which would be fun or like very, very suspenseful, is that she says something that's out of character, and then him be like, what are you talking about? And her being like, wait, what are you talking about? And then he's like, you just said this. And she's like, I didn't say it like that. And something like that. Or something interesting where there's like this split in herself, but there's no characterization in this regard whatsoever. And in the other characterizations I've seen explored in this way, one of my favorites in particular is where it's very tech based, but what happens is the character has their brain, like because they're not used to being able to remember everything. When they become overstimulated and they cannot, like, it's too much for them, they blue screen literally, and they have to have their previous self that they saved uploaded to that point, because at that point they crashed because they can no longer function as a human. And so I would have really enjoyed some type of like, how do you problem solve for that thing? One big thing I'm going to critique real quick while I'm thinking about it is Alice never does magic. Alice never does fucking magic, and she's a magician, and she loves magic, and she loves being a magician, she loves the concept of magicianry and everything like that, but she almost never does magic. And at one point, Peter even says, you're a horrible magician. And the way he says it and the way everything has been framed, I believe it. And I'm just like, yeah, why is she doing this? She doesn't even seem like she knows what she's doing, because she even at one point says, oh, I know the thing, but I can't do it. Peter can do it, though, because he knows mathematics. And it's like, why don't you understand? Why can't you do anything interesting? You cannot do, the best thing you can do is climb. And so
and it's not until the end of the book that she really starts doing, because she does a ton of magic in a very short time period at the end. But throughout, that's one of my biggest complaints, is very little magic is done most of the book, and they give you an excuse for that, which I'll get into. But I just want to respond. Can you highlight Thea Quinn's comment?
This one?
So Thea says, aren't you guys getting confused? I feel like the 17 rejections happen later when Alice is alone and they write essays about what wrong they did in life. Nope. This is from that section. They won't pass me 17 times, and they still won't pass me. I'm such an idiot. Oh, no. Alice was sorry she had snapped. She was familiar with sites like this, and normally when people had mental breakdowns in college. So it does happen here. Now, the reason, Thea, I think you're confusing it is because, as Raggedy Manatee says, I feel like Pride and Dis were the same thing. Weren't they both writing papers?
Oh, yes. Shit.
The one was a paper arguing what is the true nature of good, and the other one is a dissertation that you have to submit about the wrongs you did in life, and that's the final thing. So they're both points where you have to submit things, and you get, like, if you submit it, and at least in Pride you get told if you didn't pass. In Dis you get told nothing. And so if you don't get told anything, then you didn't pass. So I understand the confusion, because they're basically the same thing, and I had the same thought and I didn't like it. Anyway, Desire sucked, but knowing that she can't forget would make understanding why she's freaking out in this scene so much more relevant, because each of these terrible images that she doesn't want in her little brain, she can't get rid of. Yeah. And it's one of those things where, as a reader, there is no benefit to the discovery, like, that she remembers everything. Like, there's no, like, it does nothing. There's no reason we can't already know about it. Especially because we already know Grimes sucks. Just tell us, or maybe she has the tattoo and we don't know that Grimes is the one that puts it on her. And
that would be a better
revealed.
Yeah.
Like, and she's struggling with this thing, and it can even tie into that she thinks of it as a consequence of herself. Like, originally when we're introduced to the tattoo, this isn't what happens, this is what I'd like to have happen. We get introduced to the tattoo and she's like, that's one of my biggest mistakes, or it was a mistake but also a good thing. And so we think it's something she did, and then we learn it was something Grimes did, and it feeds into the idea of her making excuses for Grimes and
not just that, but the
responsibility.
Yeah, and then also, but the self incrimination one feels after being sexually assaulted, thinking that you are at fault in some way because of the brainwashing that you receive after that event. Like, that would have been really interesting to portray it just slightly differently, like just literally a step to the left or right, or two steps, really. Because then I think it would have, the extended metaphor of that would have really helped.
Yep. Anyway, not what happens. They leave Desire, and she like calms down. Peter like helps her out, and then I think
Long
this
story
is
short, they
where
get to the part of the Weaver, right?
yeah, they see the Lethe. She falls in.
Oh,
She
yeah, that's
doesn't
right.
forget anything. That's when she finally tells him about her tattoo. Again, why it had to happen. Also, there are these weird bone things that go clickety clack, and they come and they attack you. And they're like,
Oh,
"What the
you
fuck
rhymed.
are these bone things?" And we don't like in them. And they're like, "Oh, that had to be a magician. They had
Chalk
chalk
things.
dust, when chalk is the magic tool of choice in the
Which I do
magical
like
world."
the explanation for. It comes from like limestone or whatever. I don't really know anything about chalk, so I'm just believing in it. But so it comes from dead things, so the dead have power. Like that would be, and then that would make sense why it doesn't work in hell and why you need blood, which is what we realize later on is that they can't use magic. That's the excuse until because the chalk just keeps like disintegrating. It's because it's a dead thing, but to put a live thing in it would be interesting, which we learn is what it is. You need to mix it with blood or whatever. But also during this moment, you know what would have been cooler, honestly, in my opinion? I would have really liked if Alice fell into the Lethe and what we're told prior to her falling in, as well as after in several scenes, is that she sees memories of others, people who have gone through. And she sees, like, and I really like the descriptions. The descriptions are great. It's like a gnarled hand reaching for another hand, a daffodil in the wind, or something like that, the sand at the beach, or whatever. So they're memories of people who have fallen in. If you don't know what the Lethe is, it's where you, like, drink / go in and you forget all of your things. So when she falls in, you know what would have been cooler is if she literally was inundated with a whole bunch of other people's memories and she was overloaded. And then
Again,
when she
yeah.
came out, she's like, Bobby Jones? Bobby Jones, is that not you? And then just like have like a whole like identity crisis. That would have been really fun. But
That would have
anyway,
been great, and also played with the idea of her not being unable to forget stuff. Also, Chris M does notes that this is the second time that she
that's true.
interacts with the Lethe. The first time they see the Lethe, which is the river of hell that eventually you have to cross to get reincarnated. You drink of it, lose your memories, and then you get reincarnated. The first time there was like a
They
deity
see
that
the
was
Asian
like,
deity.
yeah, there was a deity that was like, drink the water, put your
Drink
face
the
in it. And
water.
she was like,
Come join
yes,
us.
ma'am. And then Peter's like, what the fuck are you doing, bro? Anyway, so this happens. They get attacked by the bones.
Wait,
The
you
bones eventually
wait.
leave.
Pause real quick. Wait, so I actually thought for a minute, I just, you telling this reminded me. So this is one of two Asian deities or spirits that come about. And so when I first saw it, or when it first gets introduced, I thought to myself, oh, is Alice of Asian descent, but she's an American? And is that why that she's seeing these things specifically and they keep being Asian like focused? And I was like, that would be super hella cool if it had anything to do with your ancestry and like there was some type of history behind what your experience was in hell based off where you came from and your blood's memory of like I don't know, just whatever. I don't know. You make it up. I'm not the author. But the point is like something like that. And then no, I don't know. Think that
Yeah, it
happens.
only comes up at the end where when she decides to choose the form of Lord Yama, she does it because she's familiar with it. It is the deity that she grew up with. Like she grew up with her family. So the implication is yes, she is.
Oh,
She
she
is.
is.
Yes.
Oh shit! I was wrong.
Yeah, no, she's Chinese. She's Chinese American.
Fuck
That's
yeah.
the
Sorry, that just like makes me so excited that I like because spoiler guys, I don't know how it ends. So
Yeah. The ending is going to be when I do that part. It's going to be a surprise for Katie as well. Anyway, so and then they meet the Weaver girl, and this is from Asian mythology. I say this because you see it in Chinese, Japanese,
yeah,
and Korean. Like it's so we're just going to say
Spider
Asian,
Lady
and
person.
it's basically she falls in love with a mortal. They
Yes,
cannot
the
be
bridge.
together. Her family won't let them be together, and so then because they can't get across. Like there's this big chasm, and they're like, oh god, how are we gonna walk all the way across? And this lady
So
pops up
every
and
year.
she's like, hello lovers,
Yes, like that,
yeah.
exactly.
With the Weaver lady, every year on one particular night, a bunch of birds build a bridge for her and her lover to cross the heavens, spend a
Yes.
night together, and then they have to go back. But don't you know, he was human, so he died eventually. And the Weaver lady went into hell with him. And she was like, now we can be together forever. And eventually he was like, I don't want forever. I'd like to be reincarnated. I want the sweet death of non-existence. And then I just want my
Which
energy
is
to go back.
All that's great.
Yeah, but the Weaver's lady's like, fuck you, you abandoned me. I stayed loyal to you the whole time, even though I was a cool immortal being. And she's just really pissed off about it. So now, in hell, she finds lovers and she tests them. And she's basically like, I'll give you guys a little testy test.
I hated the apple thing, can I be honest?
Yeah, it's terrible. But Alice is like, but we're not in love. And Peter's like, can't you like pretend?
Fake it?
Can you not even fake loving me? And immediately you're like, he's in love with her.
Yes,
she's disconnected from her emotions.
He's like, she doesn't know she loves him. Yes.
He's literally like, can't you just pretend? And she's missing all the signs. And he basically is like, just act like whatever we need for the one needs to be for the other, and we're dependent on each other to survive.
Logically, this all makes sense. That's what love is at its basis. So they go and do the thing.
And the thing is, basically, the Weaver lady's like, you get a choice. You can choose to continue on together, or you can choose to continue separately. If you both choose to continue separately, I will destroy your souls, and you'll be dead right now. Or you can choose to go on together, in which case I will make a bridge that will take you one time anywhere in hell you would like to go, you little cuties. And then
she does have that attitude too.
Yes. And then, or option 3, one of you chooses to go alone and the other one chooses both, like to go together. And whoever chooses to both together will get tortured for eternity as my love slave. And the other person will get a bridge that they can use whenever they want, and they can go wherever they want within hell with no problem. And so basically, if you betray the other person, if you fuck over the other person, you get great stuff and get to do whatever you want. If you both decide to be good, you only get to do it once. And if you both try to like not go with the other person, you both get fucked.
Which brings us to a scene that I hate. So there's a scene here where Alice remembers a lot of memories about Peter, and she thinks back on things. And honestly, Peter's a jackass. Peter is really rude. Peter's nasty. There are several things. Now, granted, we're in her third-person limited mind, but it does come across because she heard them literally talking. Peter to another person, and it's very sexist. It's very rude. It's very belittling. And I'm like, Peter was never her friend, because also at this point, you know that the first time Peter and her met, she was like, oh, hi, like, nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, oh, super cool, stellar. Hey, do you want to, like, hang out? We can hang out tomorrow at this place. And she's like, yeah, that sounds great. She goes there and waits, like, 3 hours for him, and he never shows up. I'm sorry. Peter is a imbecile. An imbecile and a fucking, like, he's awful. He's an awful love interest, because he never once really shows a true like, any type of, like, I'm making a sacrifice for you, or I'm loving you, or anything like that, until later on in the book where, like, you get actual, like, hell moments, like, for that. But prior to this moment, there's nothing for me as the reader to read and be like, oh yeah, I want them to be together. There's nothing like that makes me, like, root for them. And so when you're given the scene and he is, like, super rude and everything, and she accidentally, she explains, she has blackout moments where she gets caught in a dream state and she doesn't really know, and so she accidentally, like, she does not meaningfully pick the green apple, but she does.
Also,
I understand.
She discovered something in his notes the night before. The two of them had
true.
been doing well. Like, they've been, like, you know, chatting. They were touching into a sense of familiarity that they had back when they were both in lab together. And a sense of, like, closeness kind of and then she looks at his notes while he's sleeping one night, and at the last page, there is a swappy
And it's an indication that he's going to sacrifice her for Grimes,
Grimes.
is what she reads it as. So she also doesn't know if she can trust him, which is understandable, especially considering he's not the only person who's stuck their neck out for the other person so far is her. She's helped him climb the wall of bones. So it doesn't really make any sense. And Peter is so unlikable. He is not cute. He is not endearing. There is nothing about him that I like. And so, and it's not even just me. I just don't think he's written well. And so
no, he's not. For what he's supposed to be and how you're supposed to, because the book wants to tell you that Peter's a nice, good boy who's a little weird and has some idiosyncrasies, like the fact that he regularly flakes, because one of the things you learned that what he did to her when he didn't show up, it's that he never does. He'll make plans with people. He won't show up for anyone. And he's regularly flaky.
Absent-minded genius. But the thing about absent-minded genius is that sooner or later they have a come to Jesus moment and they help they realize that, like, for example, I'm thinking of not Hidden Figures, I'm thinking of, what's it called, the one with Benedict Cumberbatch where he breaks the code. Isn't it Benedict Cumberbatch where he breaks the code for the Nazi stuff, and Keira Knightley I think is in it.
Oh, is this the one the Turing?
Yeah, the Turing thing.
Yeah,
Turing machine.
Yeah,
whatever
that's called. But
it doesn't matter.
Played Turing.
Yeah, the point is, though, is there comes a point where he recognizes that he's different, and he realizes that he gets on people's wrong on the wrong side of things, and he says, "I don't mean to be this way." And then this is when he's talking to Keira Knightley, and he's just like, the imitation game. Yes, imitation. Very good. Thank you very much, Bananamas. But the point is like, he's like, and that makes you endeared to him, because the thing is, he is the main character mostly, and he is irritating and he is rude. But when you have those characters, they do something that endears you to them. And Peter does none of this. And so when you have this moment before she takes the green apple, and and you know, Peter is portrayed as this like homeschooled, strange kid because he has an illness, so he never socialized, so he doesn't know socialization things.
But the other thing is, that's not it, because the book tells you he's charming when you actually do hang out with him.
Right.
He's charming.
So he knows better.
He makes you feel. He asks questions. He's fully engaged. He's actively, when you do get him in your sights, he's like the coolest guy in the room, and he's a good time. And
so he should know better.
And the thing is, the book is going to make the reveal, his thing that we don't know, and make it be like, and that explains why he did all of this, and he did all of these weird things, and we just didn't know the thing. And Katie and Chris M, who made this comment like 2 minutes ago, doesn't justify. So Chris M says, that was one of my issues with Peter. His backstory didn't explain all the rude things he did. It explains only why he's flaky. And we'll get into that and why it doesn't absolve him a lot of. And the thing that Katie's talking about where he says something incredibly rude and sexist is, she's in a library once, and she's in a room and it's dark. She's in a lab, and him and another scholar come in, and they're talking, and they talk about her and about how she's a teacher's pet, and she's in love and infatuated with Grimes, and
that they're probably like, they even make a smacking sound with their fists, is what's said, and that grossed me out.
Yeah,
so like you know, or something like that. So like, yeah, they're fucking, and it's so disgusting.
And you're like, yo, that is a why, like, especially given that they
already had a bonding period.
The book does not address this moment.
No!
If in the reveal you actually found out that it was primarily the other guy talking, and he was trying to get the conversation in a different way, or maybe he was having a really bad day and he said it and he immediately regretted it, and he knew it was a terrible thing.
None of that.
It never gets addressed. He says this shit-tastic thing. She thinks he's going to sacrifice her to bring Grimes back, and so she picks up the apple that says, I want to go on my own. He picked up the one that says we're supposed to go together. And again, she didn't mean to. She was having one of those like
understandably
things.
Because honestly, all the memories you're given in that moment made me angry on her behalf towards Peter in a way that made me angry and did not want them to be together.
Now, I agree with the not wanting them to be together my thing is, like, girl, get your head in the game. You're getting through hell. This isn't about being together. You need both of your asses to get through hell. This
fair
is
enough.
dumb. It's
That's
dumb.
a fair point.
Also, for the sake of the plot, this could be removed. They could just get upset. Like, you know the conversation they have about that award he gets and then that she got to go to Italy? So there's a bunch of points where you learn that Grimes favored one over the other, and the other one's always very jealous about it.
He pitted them against each other to do better, assuming.
Yes, originally Peter was supposed to go on this trip to Italy, and then something happened with Peter, and Grimes was like, nope, I'm taking Alice. And then he told Alice, oh, you're going to get the Cook's award thing. It's yours, girl. Take it. And then it goes to Peter, and like, they discovered this. Like, he never realized Alice was the one that went to Italy. She never realized he was the one that got the Cook's grant. And that could have been the fight that propelled them off to Elsbeth. It didn't. You could remove this and it would not impact the plot of this story at all. It's just a weird diversion that is in here for some reason.
It's a weird sub-boss, mini-boss, like the previous, like the dean, so to say, of the library or whatever, or the librarian head. It's like a weird mini-boss, but what's weird is that it doesn't carry on that way. Like, so if you're expecting like a mini-boss for each level of hell or whatever, then okay, fair enough. But the thing is like, so structurally speaking, I would expect several mini bosses before an abnormal boss like the Weaver, because the Weaver wasn't like in charge of this area or anything like that. She was just like a wild card moment.
Yeah.
And so like, I'm thinking in video game standards, but it also works for novelization structure because it's the same thing, it's script writing. And so the thing is like, we didn't have enough regularly planned bosses to have her come along and make it like, because I've seen so many novels, read so many novels, seen so many movies and shows and everything where you do have that structure. You have the expectation, then a wild card comes in, whatever that wild card is, and it really shakes up the norm. And it's for the sake of having the characters be retrospective and think about themselves or whatever. But the thing is we have not been given that norm up until this point, and this character doesn't really make them do anything, like Maria said, that they couldn't have done without her.
Also, I don't understand why, because there's a point later where they're like, they both are kind of like, I love you, and they're willing to sacrifice. Like, she's willing, if he can't get free, she's willing to die. He's willing to let himself die if she can't. I was expecting the Weaver girl to come back and be like, you did it, you love each other eternally, I'm getting you out, kind of thing. Because at least then she would have, like, it would have been a bit of a deus ex machina, but at least then she would have had a purpose. Like, she was helping them on this journey. Like, she was like, I knew. Because
see, that would have been fun, and it would have been fun with her Asian ancestry too, especially if you got more. How many times did she rewrite this? Because I feel like she's missing things that seem fairly like.
Yes. Yes. Anyway, but yeah, so basically after they choose the wrong apple, then the lady's like,
Pirate of the.
Well,
Pirate.
No.
Oh, yes.
I have to explain how they escape, because the lady's like, I'm taking him, and she starts wrapping Peter up in silk, and immediately our girl Alice is like, oh no, this isn't actually what I wanted. I was having a daydream, and it turned real. And so she's trying to save him, and then the clacky clacker things appear, and the Weaver's like, oh, I hate the clacky clack. And again, these are skeleton bones held together by chalks, but I'm just gonna refer to them as the clacky clackers.
Yeah, it's fine.
As the clacky clacks, and they're attacking, and she's like, oh no, I've got to save him. And she used her perpetual water flask. She filled it with water from the Leafy, and they hate it because it dissolves them. And so she's like throwing it at them, but she doesn't want to hit him. And this whole thing happens. And then all of a sudden, from the bank
Pirate
of the
lady
Leafy,
from the Lethe comes out, and she's like, ahoy, mate. And she doesn't say ahoy, mateys, but that's the vibe. And she's like, get back, you fools. And she has a perfume spritzer on a staff where that has the Lethe water in it. Yeah. And then anyway, long story short, they jump on the boat that's watertight, and she's like, yo, my name's Elsbeth. And you know from Alice's little repertoire of thoughts that Elsbeth was found dead in a river. She committed suicide.
She was one of Grimes'
Yes, she was one of Grimes' students. And she's like a shade, and she's just like, yeah, like I exist here. We're all on the Great Quest because the clickety clackety things, those things are controlled by a family that came down here. Even brought their sons, their son, who they fed arsenic to in apple juice, and they're down here trying to do the great adventure or the great whatever.
Yeah. I'm going to pause here to explain because it's truly, this should be really horrifying and these should be the most terrifying parts
Yes!
of death. So we learn about the crypt
Continue,
keys.
Maria. I'll be right back.
So we learn about Elsbeth. She, like, everybody on campus is like, ooh, this girl died. But we also know the story, and by we, I mean Alice. And again, I'm mentioning this because we get Alice's thoughts. We get access to Alice's memories. We get access to what Alice knows. So even though this is third person, it's third person limited, but close to the character. Like we are in her brain being narrated third person. It's not like where we only get her dialogue and the looks on her face. It's not one of those, okay? We are in her little brainy brain. So we get her memories, and she knows who the crypt keys are because she thought they were really cool. They were a magician couple who were married, who did really cool research. And their last famous, they were academics and performers. Like they'd do Vegas and academics. But eventually the academic world was like, you're too wild, Crypt Keys. You're not part of this anymore. And then the Crypt Keys like, for our final trick, we're going to sojourn into hell and do the great task. We're going to go to hell and back. And they were like, and we're going to do it live. And so they get a big auditorium and they fill it with people and they kill themselves. Because instead of like doing what our girl Alice and Peter did, which is, magicking themselves, they just did it the old-fashioned way, which is going into hell. So they pop into hell, and then later you learn, because there's one of the, like, clackety-clacky things is on two legs and walks kind of human-like, and she's like, oh, that's their son. And you realize, oh, no, they murdered their son to go on this quest with them because they brought their son everywhere. If they had a conference in Vienna, he was going to Vienna with them. And so they killed him, and they're actively trying to get out of hell, and they're doing magic. Those weird clacky bone dogs are their magic. They have magic these bones. And then Elsbeth is like, oh, you guys because at this point they figured out that magic doesn't work here. Their chalk just disappears, and so they're like, oh shit, we have all this chalk and it's useless. And Elspeth's like, oh, you haven't realized it? You can use blood. You need an amount of living energy to make magic work. She figures it out for them. She heals him up a little bit. And you basically know there is this weird family who is specifically drinking a bit of the lethe to get rid of memories that are clouding their brain so they have more room for their studies and their work, and they're actively hunting down sojourners for their blood.
In my opinion, they should have come up back in limbo. Or past limbo, if you want to get past limbo because they're stuck past that, then the very first circle in Pride. The point is if they were going to be a major enemy, I think they should have come up significantly sooner and in a different way. I don't think just the clickety clacks.
We should have heard about these people because they kill shades, and they kill shades in a way where the shade's soul is gone and they don't get to go to reincarnation. Like
it's an explosion. It says there's an explosion that happens. So really, what would have been cool is if somebody, what would have been really fun is if somebody also tried to go get Grimes and they were ahead of them or something like that. And it was like a little thing, and it was, or maybe not Grimes, but went on their own for a study, and they were just like heard of in the background where you're like, oh, maybe like we'll come across so-and-so who came here and they can help us. And then out of nowhere, you just see an explosion in the distance, or it could be a shade too, because it says shades do that too. And maybe like, I just wish they were more intimidating. It's because right now they just seem like hearsay and with like dumb little, like, I don't know. It's not overly, like Maria said, this should be way more horrifying, especially the son part. The son, maybe the son going off and doing their bidding, and that would be really creepy. It's because he's like a little boy still forever.
This is the soul of a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
Out here, and he was with them, with the clackety-clacky boys, to try capture these two and bring them back, because again, they have to drain their blood. The Crypt Keys capture, and one of the things Elspeth makes is, haven't you noticed there's no new Sojourner research. Like, nobody has gone to hell since the Crypt Keys have died. Nobody has gone to hell and back because they're capturing all the Sojourners. And I agree with Katie. They should have come up in the first circle.
They seem like the main villain.
Limbo. Well, not just that. If they're capturing Sojourners,
Exactly.
where do Sojourners first show up? In the limbo space.
They might die before then. Why wouldn't you want to grab their bodies before they die in another realm or whatever?
There's a whole thing of why they should have come up sooner and why they should be like. And the problem is, due to the lack of atmosphere in this book, nothing is as creepy as it should be. While I was on my hiatus, I reread Nettle and Bone, and I once again am reminded of how terrifying the doll puppet thing that has its string wrapped around this grown-ass lady's neck and controls her, and it is a toy that she bonded with too much as a child that it became possessed, and they are linked. She can't have him be hurt, but he controls her ever, and that's cool. Terrifying the way. And I have a lot of problems with Kingfisher, but let me tell you, the atmosphere when they first see this monkey like puppet it's creepy as fuck, and she sets it up nicely where somebody says just don't look at him, and you're like, who's him, what is him, and then you see this toy on your shoulder and you're like, oh my god, it's a demonic monkey toy.
You know what you said that we said at the beginning and somebody else said in the comments? Atmosphere. That is besides characters, but I think that feeds into the same note, is that there is a lack of atmosphere, and I think that has to do with your ability to reveal details at the right moment and with the right descriptions. And I'm not going to say that's easy. It is not. But it definitely doesn't happen here.
Yep. And because the Crypt Keys really, like, they are the most dangerous threat, but they are so background for so much of it, and that we're going to get to a scene that should be absolutely terrible, and it really isn't. It's like...
Oh, it's where they're trapped?
R.F. Kuang just can't get the emotionality out of a scene that you need. But anyway, so Elsbeth explains this whole thing. They're like, oh shit. And she's like, I'll help you guys come along. She's like, we're looking for the key to get out of here is the Dialethea, which is a true contradiction, a true,
Does she tell them that though?
Yeah, she says, like, and we're searching for them. Like, we have to find them. And she's like, and I'm on my way. I know where one is. And they were like, because like Peter's pissed off at Alice because of the whole apple thing.
Yes.
But then Alice is like,
the way they address that.
Yes. Alice is like, we need to get that Dialethea. We need to find out what she knows. And then we can go do it, get Grimes. Because the whole time.
Hate her. Yes. Which made me hate her because Elsbeth has been nothing but kind so far. And there are several instances where Alice says, and I've met with a female, academic, and we get to this point where we're like, well, how far have you gone to get what you need? And
not just that, but how much have you been traumatized? And Alice is like, I don't want anyone to think I've been traumatized. I chose everything. When I tell you, Alice talks about other women in such a terrible way, it sets you at odds with her out the gate. I hate how women who play the game by dressing slutty, fuck them. Women who try cover themselves up, fuck them. Women who acknowledge the unfairness of the situation, fuck. Like,
but when I tell you, problem?
She's like the definition of a pick-me girl, and I hate the idea of a pick-me girl. I hate these labels we assign to women that don't fit whatever thing we now currently, because every like few years or where we are in our age, we prize tomboys, we prize girly girls, we prize this, we prize that, and anyone who doesn't fit into that, we like vilify as a society. So I hate the idea of pick-me's. But when I tell you, Alice, when you look at the fundamental boiled down version of what a pick-me is, and again, I hate this concept. I hate that this is the word that matches what this character is doing the most. Alice is a pick-me. Fuck other women. I know how to handle the men. Other people just can't handle Grimes. I know how to soothe men's egos.
So I thought, so I had a huge issue with this also. And then it got to this point around, oh, you look exhausted. And then I got to a point around this moment where we get a very long sequence where Alice goes into her philosophical meanderings. And as we're going through it, and she's like, I remember I was doing the dishes while this was happening. And I just remember listening to it this morning at like 5 a.m. And I just remember thinking to myself, maybe she's going to do something interesting with this. Maybe, just maybe. I'm hoping because I don't know what else to hope for. But it's just like, there's this one part where she goes through the idea and it makes Alice seem, and you can read it yourself if you want the note of the details. I don't have any eidetic memory, so I can't tell you the exact quotes and everything. If maybe I were more prepared, I could provide it, but alas, I am too busy making lesson plans. But the point is there is this sequence where you get Alice's thoughts on how she is a meat bag. She literally thinks of herself as an ephemeral, mortal embodiment whose only purpose in life is to seek learning and to seek discovery. And I thought to myself, oh, maybe there's like a twisting happening. Maybe there's a twist on expectation for this character. Maybe there's something like, not that it's going to be well written or like that I'll love it, but maybe the real focus here is actually, because there's this one part where Peter says, I actually started believing that you maybe weren't like him, meaning Grimes. And Alice is like, what? What do you mean? And I think it's very unfair for Peter to say that at that moment. But that being said, I thought, wait, is that what's happening? Is Alice actually Grimes in the making? And is that what the story is actually about? It's not about a romance. It's not about whatever. It's about somebody who wants to be better than others. And that's hard to relate and empathize with a character like that. And thus far, I don't think it was well done. But at that point, I thought, oh, it's more complicated than that. It's just her seeking enlightenment. And I'm like, that's cool. We get some characters that do that, but I'd like to see a twist on that, and maybe this is that twist.
Yep.
But I'm guessing based off Maria's reaction, that is not the case.
That is not the case. I think what Kuang was trying to do with how terrible she is in thinking about other women and her disdain for when women bond over the traumas they've had to deal with, because this is Cambridge in the 80s. Saint Jen made the comment, I'm not justifying her behaviors or thoughts at all, but I think finding out that the book takes place in the 80s made me understand it bit better. I
can't tell that it takes place in the 80s at all from any point in the beginning, and she should have established that.
And also, she just, the vibe of it is not there. Like, again, reference shoulder pads, people. Just give me something. But anyway, the point is, these are women academics in the 80s, and she looks at any time that they bond over the trauma and things they have to deal with, she looks down on that, even though she is one of these women. And so I thought it was a way for her to make herself feel better about the situation she was in and what happened to her by forcibly, and I think this is what Kuang was trying to do. I think Kuang was trying to be like, Alice has all these thoughts, has all of these ideas about women because she does not want to be a woman. She does not want to be one of the slighted few, whatever womanhood means to Alice that she actually still has to deal with. She doesn't actually want it, so she separates herself and makes herself, sets herself against other women and who are dealing with it.
Chris M. here says it. Read it.
She was unlikable to the end, the sort of person I wouldn't want to meet in real life because she's likely craft a story in her head to justify why she should backstab you. And that's the vibe. And the problem is, if what Kuang wanted to do was, as I said, she uses her hatred of women as a defense for everything she's had to deal with and to make herself feel like she has more agency because she's not like those other women, thus that can't possibly be what's happening to her. The back end, you have to have the shoe drop in a way that works better. It has to, you can't just set up A and not deliver on B if that's what you're trying to do. Look how cute that baby is.
I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself. He just huffed twice.
Is the bed still set up?
Okay, so look, I had Krista here last weekend, and I laid in it for 5 seconds. So this is the bed Maria slept in when she was here. It's an air mattress. And so, anyway, Krista stayed here, and the day after Krista left, I went to lay in it to deflate it, and then I laid in it, and I was like, oh shit, I haven't been in a room privately in a bed setting with all my own things around me and nothing else of my husband's. And I was like, this is magical.
This is
And so
why
I started watching things on my computer in my bed. So I haven't in my bed.
Katie?
I just called it my bed.
Yes. Katie, I have argued for years. I'm going to get up on a tiny soapbox. People should have their own bedrooms. I love sleeping in the same bed as my partner. I do.
I do too, but I want my own space.
I love my own room. We originally didn't do it for this reason. We did it because of the cats. But when I tell you, I love having my own bedroom,
the air mattress, I haven't, and let me tell you, it has not deflated at all. So it's a great air mattress. So that's what actually, when I woke up at 5 a.m. this morning to listen to the book, I fell asleep for about 20 minutes listening to the book, and I fell asleep in this bed. And my husband Juan came in, and he was like, "I told you you'd fall asleep if you laid in it." And I was just like, I was like, "Listen, I'm sorry."
Having your own bedroom is magical. I'd recommend it. Also, sleeping in a bed of your own where you don't have to worry about covers or like bed space or somebody like snoring or anything. Excellent. Highly recommend. Anyway.
Also, yeah. Wait. Sonia brings up something that I don't know anything about it.
Also minor gripe, but if this is supposed to be set in the 80s Cambridge, shouldn't Thatcherism be brought up at least a few times? Yes. But also,
what's Thatcherism? Katie's Woman Cave. Katie's woman.
You know Margaret Thatcher?
She was that's what that is. Okay, yes.
But also somebody mentioned Bananimus, the 1229 message, highlight that one. To be fair, then this means that this is happening during second wave feminism, which makes her thought about women as a young woman in academia even stranger. Like,
I thought that meant to be frank.
Yes. It can also be to be frank. So it probably is to be frank more than to be fair. That makes more sense. So thank you, Katie. But anyway, like it's insane to me that this girl is just like, fuck feminists, and they're like, and again,
and their boobies being out. Like that's the vibe. It's so shallow.
Like the fact that they covered themselves up. Don't they know to use their feminine wiles to get their way? Like. It's just such a bad take. And again, if Kuang, and I think this is what she was trying to do. She was trying to be like, Alice is just using that as a defense to deal with all this terrible things she's had to deal with. It's the only
that's
way
the way it comes across, but it's not good.
But it doesn't properly because part B never actually happens. We never get the moment of Alice being like I was wrong. All of those women were right. I denied myself like having truthful conversations because I couldn't let myself Elizabeth is right there. Elizabeth is right there as a woman that she can actually relate to and have this realization with.
And also Sonia says the OG neoliberal girl boss. Yes, that is
Thatcher.
Her vibe.
Yeah, correct. And Will says Thatcher was a strong woman who was the absolute worst. Yep. It's Alice and Thatcher have very similar. There's some similarities there. Anyway.
So that's interesting. That means there's a whole level of historical value. If this, like, I assume this took place in 2025, or whatever, 2012 80s. Or whatever. So if it's the 80s, which it does not come across as the 80s.
The only time it does, or where it becomes very obvious, is when she's talking to Gratis, and he's like, "What about the music?" And she's like, "Oh, this is the new stuff." Punk rock.
I see.
And like. I knew. Why did I know? I think it was maybe in the foreword.
Look at Will. This is a good point. If she has a perfect memory, she should have a perfect inventory of sexist lice to think back on. Agreed.
Will, when I tell you, this was one of the most enraging parts, listening to this girl be absolute garbage to other women, and the book
it's weird. You would think she'd have more empathy.
To eat shit.
Yeah, like, it's really strange. But anyway, that being said, let's move on. One of my favorite
things in that Jane Austen does is she knows how to take a character and make them eat shit.
Yes, we know.
For their beliefs.
If you haven't seen any of the Austen bits for Maria, then you know that it's important that you eat shit if you're a shitty person, even if you're a woman.
And you can learn, because then you learn and you become better. You come out the other side. You've got
we're at 2.5 hours. We have to go quicker.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I banged my
So,
desk.
basically, they betray Elspeth.
They betray Elsbeth.
She casts them out. They have to walk a while. This enters the portion where all the landscape looks exactly the same. Wrath isn't really defined. The other places they walk a bit. There's things. And then there's this one part where like it's greed and all the people are like fighting and like it's the most antagonistic shades they've dealt with. And later she's going to be like, the shades had been really non-violent up until this point. This is the first time they were dangerous. And I was like, do you not remember Greed, where they actively had to avoid being attacked by shades? Like, what are you talking about? Anyway, so they do this whole part. They kind of like process some of this stuff and they deal with it. And then this kind of begins. I'm just going to kind of skip to the most important because it's so. This is
Go read it. Go read it if you want it.
And also, it's a nothing burger. This section is a nothing burger. But basically, the next substantial thing that happens, also that cat Archimedes, he still keeps popping in and out, and he spends a lot of time with Elsbeth. But they end up falling into a crypt trap. That they're in like a pocket little space that they can't get out of.
It's an oubliette.
Yeah, they're in an oubliette. And they can't get out. And this is when they finally confess to each other all of the things. He's like, you're in love with him. You're in love with Grimes. You can't stop defending him. And she's like, I'm not in love with Grimes. I hate him. And then we get her flashback where she finally gives you the blow by blow of her and Grimes assaulting her, and then her trying to get back in Grimes' good graces because she says no. And the other thing we learn is that he sees the initial where Grimes is like, hello, baby, let's make out. And Peter sees it, and they make eye contact. Peter leaves, and then she's finally like, no, get off of me. But
you know what? No. Okay. To be fair, so I hated this part, by the way, the most. Or not the most. I already said what I hated the most, which is the teacher thing, which we might have skipped over already. No, we didn't yet. It's about to happen in Maria's like timeline that she's explaining. But the point is that in this moment, she actually said no to Grimes already. She said, no, or something like that. And that's when Peter comes in. And I thought, I already knew what was going to happen, but in my moment, I'm thinking, this is the perfect time for Peter to come in and ruin his relationship with Grimes by saying, hey, get off of her. Because why would he think?
And maybe she turned around and said, no, you don't know what you're talking about. He didn't do anything wrong. So that reinforces him thinking she's into Grimes. It's why Grimes, a whole thing. Katie, you're so right. That would so work. But no.
It would be so much better, and it would make so much more sense. And then after this, what happens is you get a scene, and I just want to say this because it really upset me actually very greatly. You get an explanation of how Alice, the fallout from that, and then at some point she goes to a professor that is known to be a feminist, and she's just seeking some type of support or understanding.
Well, not just that. She wants advice because despite the fact that Grimes did this to her, she doesn't want a new advisor. She wants to stay with Grimes, but he's ignoring her to the point that she starts wearing the outfits she knows he liked on her
and the tights
to just get his attention. So they can, because she wants to work, she wants to do the work, she wants to do the thing, and he's not engaging with her at all.
She just wants to leave, which I really liked the concept of, but I don't think it was demonstrated well. But I really it's the idea of she wants to leave behind the flesh and only go for the mind. And I really like that concept, especially in her position. And so she goes to this female advisor, and she's just like slash professor, and she's like, this is what happened. And she's like, you're a bitch. You think I'm going to help you? She's like, you've been so anti-feminist. Yeah, she's like, what do you want from me? You're an anti-feminist. I'm not going to help you. Go suffer, bitch.
And
that's literally the vibe.
Not even just that, because there's even a point where she says, do you want a new advisor? And because she knows the vibe I got from this scene.
That's not what she asked. She says, I know you don't want me as an advisor. And then she looks at her, and her face says it. And she's like, exactly.
She did say, do you want a new advisor? It can't be me.
Yeah.
But she also says, no, I don't want a new advisor. The vibe I got was that this woman knew Alice wanted to stay with Grimes as an advisor, and was
but I hated the interaction in that moment.
It's a terrible interaction.
It's very abrasive.
And it's very women not standing with women kind of thing.
And I hate it.
This woman who is one of the most vocal feminists on the campus is like, but this just happened. I won't help you. Do you want to report it to the police?
The reason why it upset me, Maria, is that it came across as a petty, passive-aggressive way to get back at something that the professor felt was overall an injustice against herself and other women.
Yep.
But she's taking it out on a single... What it came across to me is an unethical treatment of a student.
Yep.
Because if
It
I
is,
was...
100%.
I can already tell you, I have students, now it's not on a college level, but I have students that are like, you know, I'd love... If I were an immature adult, I would treat them like this. But I'm not an immature adult, and I know that students need guidance. And there's been the thing that why I'm bringing this up is that Alice specifically brings up earlier on. She's like, undergraduates are babies, and she's not an undergraduate. But the point is it's somebody below your station, and it's like these undergraduates are babies. They're so passionate. They just want to do the best. And so I thought that would come to this moment. That seemed like a theme because it comes up several times. And so when we get to this moment where a person in power has the ability to help shepherd somebody in trouble into a safer zone, you don't get that. Instead, you get somebody saying, it sucks to drown, doesn't it? And it's like, I would never, as a teacher, no matter what, ever treat a student like that, because it is my job to be ethically above that and provide the best opportunity for more.
And the thing is, this scene, I think, is the entire reason she set this in the 80s. And the reason I say that is because, as Katie and I have mentioned, outside of this, there is nothing, outside of it being a more misogynistic time in academia, there's no different, like, nothing else puts this story in a specific time period that it needs to be in, that it couldn't be. But you need a misogynistic society and women that are divided against each other in this specific way to make this scene work, because I have been a graduate student who had to go to a professor who wasn't my advisor to discuss with them something like this.
Oh, really?
Yes.
You never said that.
No, you know that. Remember with the whole, the things that ended up on the internet that shouldn't have been on the internet?
Oh, that, yes. But she was very supportive.
She was so supportive. She immediately, I went there because, like, something happened and I had to someone was threatening to tell my school something. And so I was like,
that was inappropriate and had nothing to do with Maria, really. But it was blackmail at the end of the day.
Yes. And so I just went to the head of my English department and was like, this is what's happening. And when I tell you, the minute that woman heard that, she went into, what can I do? What can I help you? So that is why. That is why. And let me tell you, had to be written in the 80s, I think.
Yes, and let me tell you, like, we had the cops come over, and they cared less than her professor.
Yes.
The cops came, took a statement. They didn't even take notes. And so the thing is like, that shows you that people in academic power, I feel like there's a better representation of it, and I just don't love this.
But I think that's why she put it in the 80s, because I do not think this
then you should have premised that before that point.
I think, and even then, I still don't like the scene. I hated the scene. It was so shitty. And again, it feeds into this idea of, like, that women just, like, that Alice's dislike of women is justified because finally she reaches out to another woman and it doesn't work. And again, it's a weird scene. I don't like it. But what we learn is, we basically get we see what happened, but we don't learn anything new. We knew that because of this, that because of his assault on her, this is what fucked Alice up so much that she messed up the thing, the pentagram, because she tells Peter, I hate him. I'm the one who killed him. And then we get the flashback in this conversation, and then what brought her to this point.
Can I say what Peter's issue is real quick? Because I just want to say it so badly.
Yeah, so then we get Peter being like, I also hated him. I'm the one who killed him.
Because he specifically on purpose made a mistake to a certain degree. And we learn, and I want to premise this with, if any of you have this disease, I'm so sorry you have to live with this. I do not belittle your experience. I already know several people myself also that have it, and I know it sucks ass, no pun intended. But, like, it doesn't, like several other people said, it doesn't excuse his negligence of his relationships. That being said, he has Crohn's disease. And so he has an irritable bowel syndrome issue. And so I just think that was a weird way to... So if he was a nicer person, that would make sense.
it's a double pronged story. We get his flashback, which is he grew up with Crohn's disease. It's before, and before it was even Crohn's disease, he had it, and it has affected him. He stayed out of school for a long time, and once when he was in a bit of a remission and he wasn't having in the middle of a flash, his parents had a birthday party for him and invited a bunch of his classmates who he hadn't seen for ages, and he had a great time. He hadn't interacted with kids, he hadn't played, he hadn't done hide and seek. He has a great time, and the one pretty girl in the class sits with him and is like, "Are you having fun?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm having a great time."
And she's like, "I'm so glad we could provide fun to an invalid."
She was like, "Oh, good, we're doing our job." And he's like, "What do you mean?" And she was like, "You're an invalid, so we had to come here and make sure you had a fun time." And in that moment, baby Peter, who's very smart, he's so smart that he's been getting tutors, he's a prodigy, genius, blah, blah, blah. In that moment, baby genius Peter realizes, oh, I don't like pity. I don't like this feeling. I would rather be seen as an asshole than have to deal with this. He goes to his parents and he tells his parents, I don't actually want to go to school. I would like to be homeschooled through my A levels. And his parents are like, it's actually socially better for you to go to school, buddy. And he was like, no, I do not want to interact with lesser minds, which he doesn't actually think. He actually liked hanging out with everyone.
No.
But he doesn't want pity.
Yes. But pause. He does literally say that to his parents because his parents are like, what is our son saying lesser minds?
Yes, but so he does say that, but what he's choosing to do in that moment is to appear an asshole so he doesn't have pity. He lets his parents think that he thinks he's better than other people and thus he shouldn't be brought down by lesser minds. When that's not it at all.
And his dad vibes with that vibe.
Yeah. And that's not it at all. He actually was having a great time with all the lesser minds, and he was having a good time, but he just doesn't like pity. And so he does that, and then eventually before college, he gets prescribed a new medication that works, and he goes into remission for a long time. He's able to go to school. He works out. He eats stuff.
Indian cuisine in the UK, which is, as we like, spicy food.
And he specifically sets himself up to play into the erratic genius thing, where realistic. I also demand to be homeschooled to avoid lesser minds, says William. Go away, William. But
I think your mom just thought that the Florida education system was faulty, which is correct.
Yes. Especially since she homeschooled all of her children, I believe.
Yeah, it wasn't you. You're not special, William.
Anyway, so he was like, so he goes and he likes interacting with people, but he purposefully keeps himself at a distance. So when he does has flare-ups and he disappears for a while, he never says anything. If he has to
Which is so dumb.
Class,
just send messages to your professors.
If he has to miss something, if he has to miss a social thing, he just purposefully doesn't tell people. And so it just becomes an idiosyncrasy of his, like, oh, that Peter, he's such a weirdo, but he's such a genius and we'll take it. And so
he's just, it specifically says at one point, he's just like, they think I'm quirky, so I can work it. And so he just continues it. Also, Will is so dumb.
Oh, yes. He says, true, I didn't get to avoid lesser minds because of my sisters. I hope your sisters don't watch this channel, except I know one of them does. So, hi. But anyway, yeah, and he concocts this version of himself that is just flighty, doesn't follow up on stuff, and is a bit of an asshole to hide his Crohn's disease. He's so incapable of telling anyone that he
Which
is
I get
sick,
that, because then it's embarrassing to talk about, like, as a disability. Like, to say, yeah, my butthole and / my gut / my stomach can't. Like, as he says at one point, he's like, I have an upset tummy, is what he says in that tone. And it's like, God, what an embarrassment. And that's not fair, because, hello, your whole digestive system is like half your body. So it would make sense why it would have such an effect on you. That is horrid. I cannot imagine. Like, Maria knows I have been very lucky, very, very lucky indeed my whole life to get away with a lot of eating of garbage / whatever, and it just never bites me back in the butt. Like, I could just get away with almost anything for the most part. Now, whether or not my emotional eating is, I can't tell if Maria's still here or not, or whether or not she's been frozen. But that being said, I'll finish this little rant by just saying, I'm not belittling Crohn's disease. I know people with Crohn's disease. It sucks so bad, but it is a very strange thing to compare her experience to, because it literally is a direct comparison. You get her flashback and then you get his flashback. So it's a very strange way. And because you don't know his perspective, you only know hers, you got tidbits to this. So it's like, it's not a big reveal, whereas his is a huge reveal. And so it's like, oh, that has more emphasis. And it's like, that shouldn't allow you to do what you did nonetheless. You could still be a kind person. You could still, as an adult, realize, because the thing is he's too old for this point. At this point in graduate school, you're 22, 23, 24, 25. And so, yeah, I know a lot of those age groups that are still not well put together and they just struggle out the wazoo. But it's just like, no, at that age, you should be able to send an email and say, I can't make it because of so-and-so. Bananimus says, I don't know. You'd think if he was going to have a disease reveal in the 80s, it would have been something more untreatable to impact their views on death, literally going to hell, especially compared to essay. Like, you mean like AIDS? Yeah, that probably would have been a really interesting concept. I would have preferred AIDS. That would have been really interesting, especially with the 80s thing, but I didn't know 80s. Like, I'm checking on Maria. Give me a sec. My internet cut out. I'm trying to reconnect, she said. Okay. Well, what's unfortunate for us is that I didn't read much beyond this because I just ran out of time.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, thank God. So you're only going to be able to hear me. I'm on my phone. I don't have internet. I won't until 3:00. We're finishing this audio, baby.
Okay, sounds great. Okay, so
Where were we? Where were we?
Wait a second. So let's hurry up and get this done. Bananimus was like, God. Okay. Wait, let me just wrap this up. Wrapping up of Title I stuff. It sucks ass. Continuing on.
That's where we were. Freaking Peter and his dumbass shit. So Peter, we basically learned that's Peter's thing. And because he got sick, like he was in remission for years and he was doing great in school and he got buff actually. And then he's doing great work, but then he gets sick and he's in remission for a while, or not in remission. He's like, he gets real bad. And he's so
this is
sick.
Really awkward just having my image on the screen while you're talking about this. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
In video, like in post, we'll add like a picture of me. We can use Val's image of me.
That's what Will said. Yes, I saw.
But anyway, so he's like, he gets so sick that he misses enough work that he finally has to tell Grimes. And again, he doesn't tell anyone. And he also acknowledges that him and Alice have become quite close and he actually quite likes her and he wants to be friends with her and all of that. But then he gets sick and he just drops off the face of the planet. He doesn't want to tell anyone about it. He doesn't say anything. He just drops off the face of the planet. Eventually he goes to tell Grimes and Grimes is like, oh, well, you don't look sick, even though he's lost like 20 pounds. And then basically the outcome of this is Grimes steals his work that he presented to Grimes that was going to revolutionize the whole ass thing. Grimes is like, tee hee hee, I'm evil again. And when he steals Grimes' work, or when he steals Peter's work, Grimes has Peter edit it. And so to edit it, and knowing Grimes wasn't going to double check any of his work, he purposefully fucked with a couple of the pictures of the pentagrams to fuck over Grimes in the hopes that it would embarrass him and he would mess up in a public way and that Peter could be like, ha ha ha, fuck you, buddy. And then that is the mistake that Alice thinks she made, which is a gap in a pentagram. Everything has to be closed. And he's like, that wasn't you, Alice. I actually put the gap there. It was me. And she was like, but I should have caught that it was a gap. You shouldn't have gaps. And they're both like, wow, I guess we're culpable in his death. But they're arguing over who's more culpable. And then he's like, Alice, I can get you out of this trap that the Kripke set for us. And she's like, no, because it would only be me. And there's this whole thing about a logical paradox and why it works, blah, blah, blah. And he's basically like, I can only free you. And she's like, then we both die. And he's like, no, you have to be free because, and you're like, because he loves her. And she's like, no, you can't just let me live and you die. Not when we're finally. And she's like, you're like, is she going to say, when I love you? When I really, and she's like, when we don't hate each other anymore.
Yeah,
so he frees her, he stays, the Kripkes come, they kill him. And it has no emotional, like to Alice it has emotional impact, but to you as the reader, it is told so vaguely and with so little pomp and circumstance that it kind of flies by. And I literally was like, wait, did he actually die? Like, he does. Yes, he's dead. They drain his blood and they're going to use him for shit. And now Alice has to go on her own and she's like a lost little puppy, and eventually she wanders up to this guy named Gratis, and Gratis is like, I'll take you to Dis which is the last of the world, like last of the circles and everything before you get to Lord Yama's court. And if you tell me stories of like, sure, weird shade old guy who's just asking me for this, I'll go along with you. And they like do stuff. Eventually they get to Dis. Dis is where people write dissertations to get out of hell, and it's where like the worst of the worst are. People who have done shitty things, and they gotta write, and they've gotta defend themselves, and if they do it, they get out. And he's like, I've been here a long time, Alice. Nobody has gotten out. Nobody has done anything. So it's just a waste of time. And also there's like a writing market, like a writer's bazaar, and he's like, hell is a writing course type. And a thing about how writing courses and books about how to write are all just ways to waste time to not write, which was like a weird jab at, I don't know. Anyway, there's this whole really dumb side quest where she goes to a citadel. Don't worry about it. You don't need to know anything about it. And Katie, at what point did you stop reading?
You've lost me at this point.
Where did you get up to?
I got up to the point where she met back up with Grimes, I think. Oh, okay, then it wasn't Grimes. It was somebody else.
This is Gratis.
Okay, then that person, yes. Like literally after Peter dies.
So anyway, so there's a citadel thing with the grove of people who have decided to stop living and trying to get out of hell, and they've just turned into trees. And again, it should be really creepy and scary, but it's not. And then so Gratis is like, don't go with the lady to the citadel. And Alice is like, I'm a real girl. I can do what I want. And she goes to the citadel. And afterwards, Gratis finds her and is like, should have gone to the citadel. And she was like, I should have listened to you, Gratis. And at this point, the big problem for her is she's like, I want to die, but I can't die because Peter sacrificed himself for me. And now I have no reason to live. I have no goals. I have nothing. So what's the point? And she's kind of like, extra expressy depressy in limbo kind of thing. And then eventually she sees somebody else die and she thinks, no, I don't want to die, which ignites her to live again. And she's like, oh, I shall do things and I shall go on a quest. And she's like, I'm gonna fuck up the crypt keys. And that becomes, no, who did that? Katie, was that you?
Please continue talking.
Anyway, and she's like, I'm gonna take on the crypt keys, and Gratis is like, yo, that's fucking baller. And she's like, I wonder who Gratis is and what terrible things he's done. And he's like, I don't try to get my soul back or to get redemption or anything. I'm just not doing any of it. And she's like, okay, Gratis. And he's like, before Gratis pops back in, she's like alone and extra expressive depressy because she has no like life in her kind of thing. And she gets attacked by a cat. Like there's just a giant cat, like a panther, but she keeps calling it a cat instead of saying a panther. And it's just this like starving cat who has wandered in, who's going to eat her. And then her and the cat like tango, and she kills the cat. She like presses her face into its flesh, ends up eating the cat. She cooks it, but she ends up eating the cat, and it kind of revitalizes her.
What?
And this is when Gratis comes back, and he's like, if you're going to take on the crypt keys, you're going to need armor. And she's like, yo, I can use the cat. And she like takes the cat apart and puts the cat ribs over herself to attack the crypt keys. And she uses, she sets all these traps for them. And it's like this whole scene, and this poor starving cat. But anyway, and then like the crypt keys come, and she like traps the wife and the son first, and like tangles with them, and then like gets them trapped in a thing that they can't get out of.
Oh god! So they have like a whole fight, which means yes, there should have been more premise to this.
And then she like tangles with Nicholas, or the husband, and like they do a whole thing, and eventually, you know, that whole thing. Oh god, I forgot to mention this. Oh my god, I can't believe we forgot this. So there's a reveal way earlier in the book where Alice is like, actually, I'm not here to save Grimes. I'm here to take his spirit back and make him a meat puppet.
Wait a second.
As torture.
Wait, let me give this because this is the only thing I can give. Yes, what we are told after they're in the oubliette. And we're told that
it's well before the oubliette. Or no, it isn't the oubliette.
No, it is the oubliette because it's like the last thing I remember.
Yeah.
What happens is basically this. Basically, Alice is like, yeah, so actually what I was intending, which is really fucked up and really says a lot about her. But anyway, Alice is just like, yeah, actually, I didn't intend to bring him back to be like a person. I brought him back to be a meat puppet. and I hope to keep him in like a jar and to make him my slave. And anything I wanted from him, if I needed a letter of recommendation, if I needed voice, whatever it was, I could just get him to give it to me because like he would then be alive. And it's just like pure madness. So I at that point I thought Alice has gone mad. She was mad from the beginning, which makes sense with her philosophy on I am a human meat sack. I am only here for knowledge. So it does match that, but it's just like a weird like accoutrement. But anyway, please continue, Maria.
Yeah. So we learned about that earlier. I hate it because, again, we've been in her head the whole time. And then she's like, actually, I'm not here to save him. I'm here to torture him forever. Anyway, so she uses the spell that she was going to use on Grimes. She uses it on Nicholas Kripke. And it, like, puts them kind of, like, halfway between Earth and hell, where she's, like, back on Earth in the closet that she stored. She also, I have to mention, she grave dug. She went to Grimes's grave, dug up the little bits of him because he exploded, and has it in like a place. And so she ends up back in that closet with Kripke, and he's stuck in this body, and it's not his body. And he's like, "Ugh, this is terrible. What torture is this?" And she's trying to. Meanwhile, while that's happening, she's trying to drag his body into the river Lethe in hell, but she's not strong enough to do it. And then, grace of God, a gust of wind or like a thing slams into her and helps her throw him into the river. Nicholas lands in the river. She ends up on the rocks. She's still kind of wet. But Nicholas like dissolves into the river, and all of his memories fade and everything. And she's like, "Oh my God, I'm wet. Oh no." And then her tattoo dissolves off of her, and she's like, "Wow, yay." And she immediately feels like a human again, where like, you know, she's not inundated by all the memories she can't forget. But then she's also like losing memories because she's still kind of wet in the Lethe's waters. But she gets herself no. She throws him in. She watches that happen. She's not wet yet. But then Magnolia, Kripke, the wife, and the son come, and they're like, "Oh no, our husband has..." Actually, no, she is wet. She watches this happen while she's wet. They're like, "Oh no, my husband," and the kid's like, "No, my daddy." And so Magnolia lifts up her son, and they just walk into the water, and they let themselves die into the Lethe and just fade into oblivion because they lost him. And, you know, what was the point of everything if they can't all go back together? So they just like poof back. And as Alice is looking at this, she was like, Magnolia was the perfect woman academic. She wasn't married to another professor, and that's how she got tenure. She got tenure in her own right. She wasn't a wife and mother and thus not an academic. She was all of it, and she could do all of the things, and she didn't have to bow down to her husband. He loved her equally. And it's this really like
what would have been,
yeah, it would have been this really awesome thing to have learned earlier. And because she was like, Magnolia was the best of us, and I'm like, what is he to tell us right now as we watch her dissolve?
Okay, continue.
And anyway, and then Gratis comes, and he's like, she was like, "You came back, you helped me," because he was like, "I won't be anywhere near here when the Kripkes come. They're terrifying." But then the thing that helped her throw Nicholas into the thing, that was Gratis helping her as a shade. And so he put himself in danger to help her. And then the boat comes across the Lethe to be like, "Come on, Gratis, it's time for you to reincarnate, baby." So basically, he helped her at his own expense, and thus the gods of death / hell were like, "Okay, you're ready, baby. Even though you haven't done the dissertation that everybody else has been doing, you get to go across the river." And he's
this
like,
sounds
"Oh yeah."
So awful.
He's like, "Oh yeah, let me go in the golden boat. Let me drink of the river." And he's like, "Bye, Alice. Have a good time." And she's like, "Bye, buddy." And he like goes off happily across the river. And the guy on the boat who's shuttling him across is like, "No, Alice, it's not time for you." And he pushes her back onto the stones. And she's like, "Oh my God, I'm losing my memories because I'm wet from the Lethe." And then Elspeth comes and is like, "You're all right. Come on." And takes her onto her boat, drives her off. And then her and Elspeth have this conversation because like there's this point earlier when Peter and her are stuck in the oubliette discussing Grimes. They were like, "He wasn't that bad, you know. There was way worse professors and stuff like that. It's not like he was a bully, even though this whole time we've heard about what a bully he is." But then her and Elspeth have a conversation where she's once again trying to defend Grimes, and he's like, Elspeth's like, "You realize you don't have to do that. You don't have to defend this asshole, right?" And she's like, "Yeah, actually, you know what? I didn't realize that. But like, he can just be an asshole and doesn't have to have..." Because she was saying, I have to believe that he was smart and he was a genius because otherwise, and that he chose me and that meant I was special.
Just
because
stop.
otherwise it doesn't justify any of this. And she's like, but you realize you don't need that. Like, you don't need him to have been a genius. You don't have to give him that power. And she's like, wow, you're right. And so then they have this moment, and Elspeth is like, I understand why you guys betrayed me earlier in your position and everything. And actually, I was lying. And she pulls out the dialetheia, the contradiction in hell, and it's a living little tree that was growing on a rock, and nothing's supposed to grow in hell. So this is the contradiction that's going to get her out of hell. And she's like, Alice, I'm giving it to you. And Alice is like, no, Elspeth, you found it. You use it. And Elspeth is like, no, I'm going to go into the system and try get out the normal way. You've inspired me to actually stop trying to get out of hell to live, but to actually go into reincarnation. You do your shit, girl. And she takes her on her boat because it turns out something earlier is that Peter's version of hell's map was correct. Well, kind of correct, but more so than Alice's. And Elspeth takes her on the boat to Lord Yama's island, and they get there, and Lord Yama looks a little different at first, and he's like, yo, what version of me do you want me to be? And she's like, I'd like you to look like Lord Yama, like from my childhood and all of the stuff with my family. And he's like, nice choice. It's a good version of me. And he's like, I'm so glad you made it. Nice time. I had fun watching you. And he was like, what do you want? And she's like, well, I came here to find Grimes. And he poofs Grimes in. And Grimes is like, oh, Alice, you did such a good job. You came to hell. You found me. And she was like, what do you mean? You knew I was looking for you? And he was like, yeah, I put the idea in your head. I sat at that one little pavilion and like haunted you for a while, putting the idea to come into hell in your head and Peter's head. And she's like, Peter's dead. And he was like, yeah, obviously he's not here with you. So, and he was like, now we can be professor and student forever and we can study forever. And she's like, no, I'm leaving. And he's like, no, you don't understand. We have to stay here forever. Hell is where we don't have bodies and we can just study forever and become the most powerful beings ever. And then once we're the most powerful, then we can redo everything and we can be alive again. And I don't know. It was really weird. I hated this because it made Grimes.
I've been trying my absolute best at pantomiming everything you're saying. I don't know if you can see me.
I can. Oh. I can't pay too much attention. I gotta get through this.
No, I'm trying really hard, and this is insane.
Yeah. And it sucks because Grimes becomes this just like, instead of just being a flawed human who does shitty things, I would have much preferred it if they found him and he was like he was like lost in the process of hell.
It would have been better not to have him as a true character in the end.
Yeah, well, I would have liked if he was like, I have to finish writing what the true nature of good is or something like, and he was obsessed with like something like that. And like she saw him as pathetic, but instead he's like, oh, Alice, we can do such great things. I did this.
Together.
And she's like, if you wanted me to find you, why weren't you waiting for us at the beginning? And he was like, it's the journey, Alice. You always want things to get to the end too quickly. It's the journey, baby.
It's the journey. And then the journey was to me, not physically, but emotionally and intelligently.
Yeah. And in this moment, she realizes what a fucking ass this guy is. And she's like, are you done?
God.
And he's like, what? You would talk to me that way? And she's like, I'm just going to do something. And she starts drawing a pentagram. And he's like, that's one of Peter's, and he's like, this pentagram won't work. It's not true. And she was like, actually, if you like actually worked with Peter, you would know this would work. You just haven't seen it before. Bold of you to just assume it wouldn't because you don't know what it is. And it's the exchange.
Bold of you too.
Yeah. It's the exchange pentagram that Peter was going to use to send back Grimes. And this was also something that we forgot to mention. Peter never intended to sacrifice Alice to save Grimes. He was going to sacrifice himself to save Alice and Grimes and get them out. And so Alice uses that same pentagram to save Peter in place of Grimes. So she sacrifices Grimes' soul to get Peter's back. And then Peter pops out and is like, oh my God, Alice. And they have this like, oh my God, like they hug each other. And they're like, oh my God, I love you. I'm so happy to see you. And he's like, oh, Alice, you brilliant thing. And she's like, oh, Peter. And then Lord Yama's like, I'm still here, guys. And they're like, and she was like, look, the dialetheia. And she's like, Lord Yama, I'd like to bargain now. Since you really enjoyed watching us, I want you to send us both back to Earth, and I want you to not take half of our lifespans. And Lord Yama's like, ma'am, you came in here knowingly. I will only take half of I'll only take a quarter of your lifespans. And at first she was going to argue more. And then Peter was like, no, Yama, that's all good. And so then he builds them a staircase and he's like, so long, friends. And then they walk up the stairs and then they go to Cambridge and they're like, wow. And that's it. That's the book.
Wow, that sounds like the ending of As Above, So Below, but way worse.
Yeah. We did.
Wow, I'm glad we got through this at 3 hours and 7 minutes, considering our technical difficulties.
Yep.
Guys, we won't linger because Maria's not here to linger. But that being said, yeah, that's the book.
That's the book. It's a wild ride. The last third is just weird as fuck, and I don't know. It is what it is.
So that being said, Maria, would you recommend this book?
What?
I said, would you recommend this book?
For some people, listen, there's enough people that have enjoyed it that I think if you don't mind that the background is really like a watercolor play, like a watercolor background for a school play, I think you might like enjoy it. And if Alice doesn't annoy you, you'll probably enjoy it. And if you don't mind all the logical inconsistencies, and there's a bunch of things that I took screenshots of where the author contradicts herself from a thing that she said earlier, like
my thing that I gave earlier about the whole like burning of the food thing versus like historiology,
just whether the shades were violent or not previously, or what kind of teacher Grimes was. Like there's a bunch of stuff that we won't go into, and there are people that enjoy this. In fact, there is a YouTuber I quite enjoy, Princess Weeks, and she enjoyed this book. And I really like Princess Weeks, and I think she's great. And so I do think there's an audience for this. I just don't think I was one of them. And it kind of, and again, I do think this is better than Poppy War. I enjoyed this more than Poppy War. I know I made complained.
Big takeaway. Maria thinks it's better than Poppy War.
Yep. And so I know I've ragged on it a bit, but it was not, Poppy War enraged me to read. This didn't enrage me. It was kind of boring at a couple points, and it annoyed me. There were points where it did enrage me, but I wasn't enraged the whole time. So, yeah, I don't know. Read it if you want.
Yeah, and my final thoughts are, I would not personally recommend this book to anybody, not because I not in the same way that I say that for, say, Shadow of the Conqueror. What I mean that as, it's just, I just didn't really like it, and so I don't know anybody that I would, in particular, be like, wow, you would really love this. Like, I don't know of anybody, especially because anybody I know that has experienced academia, or like, any type of like essay or anything like that. I don't think it's a representation of it that is satisfying or enlightening to read for any of those people. And there was no inherent value to the characters where I was like, oh, they were endearing, I loved them. So even if the plot wasn't good, I really loved the characters. It didn't, that there's a lot to say for characters that are lovable, but a plot that's boring, or an interesting
or a plot that's really good.
That's what I was just gonna say.
Yeah.
Or an interesting plot with less interesting characters. But the problem is this book has neither. And so I don't really have anybody in particular in my life that I would say, yes, go read this. The only thing I would say is that I think some of the concepts and I think some of the philosophical meanderings are really interesting. I do enjoy it, but I just don't think it's really highlighted upon or like used to its best advantage in a book that has this structure with two characters. Like, you know, what I mean? Like a romantasy, basically, right? And so that being said, let me just real quick, somebody who said, Chris M said, this was a cursed live stream. Indeed.
Yep.
We had Bananima said, OMFG. I was going to say Journey Through Hell while also acknowledging your pass is so good in As Above, So Below, and should have been run. Yeah, like anything like that or whatever. Yeah. You know, like that's the way, like one way you could bring it. And then,
oh my God, I forgot that Alice snorted chalk. Chris M, I was scrolling through Alice in the battle with the Crypties. She snorted chalk. Gratis told her to snort chalk. I completely forgot about that. What a weird book.
For what purpose?
It gave her extra speed and like it heightened all of the energy, like the Living Dead energy. She got straight into her brain, and it became like as if she'd done some cocaine. Like she became stronger and faster. So like as the animals were attacking her, she was like, I am faster than them, even though I shouldn't be. And she could like see the gaps in them. And there was this whole thing about the way
look,
and the butcher
that would
parable.
work so well if the whole book was whimsical, but the whole book is not whimsical. And so to have something like this, and then Banana said because it's the 80s cocaine. Yes, but the thing is where, you know what's so funny is I'm pretty sure I just sat in on a discussion for writing. I just don't remember where it was at. And I can't recall what we were discussing or where it was at, but we were discussing how portrayal of the era that you are in is really important and can have such an influential moment. And I'm pretty sure it was in KFC where somebody like portrayed it in a specific way and we were like, yeah, that works really well. And we were like, yeah, it's really important to notate the influences in the moment. Or maybe it was like even Maria and I discussing things for Sinners. Because I showed her Sinners a couple weekends ago, and like the discussion of that, I don't remember what it was, but the point is it matters. And the thing is that you can't just slide that in later on. You have to, you should have given us something beforehand for us to know that it is in the 80s, because there was nothing I caught on to. And maybe I'm dumb, but I don't think I'm dumb. And I did not catch on to anything that specifically said 80s.
Yeah, it was just a weird choice. And again, I think the only reason it was the 80s was because that was like the last decade that conversation could have realistically happened between her and that one advisor lady. But like, I don't know.
Yeah, Chris M. also says, I wouldn't have known it was the 80s if there wasn't a mention of Lennon getting killed in the last 10 years. And that's not up until the point that I read to, which is like 3/4 through the book.
Yeah, you did miss that because she specifically tells...
Great.
No, I think that happened. Did she tell Gratis or was it earlier? And she told
you said Gratis last time, but I don't even know who Gratis is because I never got to that point. Gratis
is the guy you thought was Grimes when she meets back up with Grimes. She met up with Gratis.
Yes, I get you.
It's just,
but anyway,
it's just a weird. It's a weird. Yeah, I don't know. There it is. That's the book.
Okay, so that being said.
Don't eat cats.
Yes. So that being said, not a stellar book. I would give it probably a 4 out of 10, personally, which is pretty low, honestly. But that's just like more of my disappointment. Really, it should probably receive a 5, maybe. I think I'm probably really irregular with rating these books, but like it's just also my personal experience. But I would give this a 5 out of 10. Maria, you?
I would say so. There are things about this that I think in ways that I think Kuang is, like kind of competent and like, and then other ways where it's just really weird and incompetent. So yeah, I would say a 5 out of 10 feels pretty apropos. Okay.
With that being said, guys, Maria's not here visually, but she is here vocally and spiritually. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Unresolved Textual Tension. Maria, any last thoughts?
Nothing. We love you, our parasocial darlings. Oh wait, read the I guess we did it earlier. We don't have to do it now. I was going to say the parasocial legends.
No, we did it. I just don't remember. Right. It's fine.
We love you, our parasocial darlings. Bye.
Goodbye. Have a great day. I'm sorry you had to look at my face this whole time, but now it is the end of stream, and I'm clicking end of stream, which means you only have 10.